No, you can mute the mics. Just make sure that the video feed is.
Bomb, 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 bomberin'. Bomb, 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 bomberin'. Bomb, 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 bomberin'. Bomb, bomb, bomb.
That was so much. I think we were trying to do what we could get from you. So you're doing it? Yeah, I grabbed the headphones. You go to
My country's got a feeling, really hit the ceiling, bomberin', bomb, 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 bomberin'. Old Uncle Sam's getting pretty hot. Time to turn Iran into a parking lot. Bomberin', bomb, 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 bomberin', bomb, bomb. Bomb, 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 bomberin'. Bomb, 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 bomberin'. Bomb, 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 bomberin'. Bomb, 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 bomb.
On a recent episode of the Outlaw Radio Network.
Some of our listeners even appreciated you dumbing it down for them. So, on behalf
Sometimes
of Paul,
I have to
thank you.
mansplain for people like. By the way, mansplaining is when men explain things to a woman in a condescending tone. I just mansplaining.
That's the Outlaw Radio Network Sunday night at their new time from 6 to 10.
Never give in. Never give in.
Never, never, never. In nothing, great or small, large or petty, never give in except to convictions of honor and good sense. Never yield to force. Never yield to the apparently overwhelming might of the enemy.
You're listening to the Outlaw Radio Network. OutlawRadioNetwork.com.
This country can't be knocked out with one punch. We get right back up again, and when we do, the world's going to hear the roar of our engines.
But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
You do your work, and we will do our bit.
Republic. I like the sound of it. It means people can live free, talk free, go or come, buy or sell, be drunk or sober, however they choose.
Are you ready to be who you are?
No poetry, just a straight answer.
The government has deliberately sought to deceive the United States by false statements and expressions of hope for continued peace.
We are men of the hood, Matty, now at your expense.
But there's no both sides anymore. They're just trying to wreck our goddamn country. It's time for you younger guys to take over it.
You meant to be.
It's over. Screw them. This is your time. Now go out there and take it.
If you guys don't start thinking as men, we're going to have a lousy country.
For the crimes of incitement to cause unrest, I declare to be an outlaw!
Bomb, 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 Iran. Bomb, 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 Iran. Bomb, 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 Iran.
What country's got a feeling really hit the ceiling? Bomb, Iran. Bomb, 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 Iran. Went to a mosque, gonna throw some rocks. Tell the Ayatollah, gonna put you in a box. Bomb, Iran. Bomb, 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 Iran.
This is some good stuff right here. This is some really good. This is chart topper.
Old Uncle Sam's getting pretty hot. Time to turn Iran into a parking lot. Bomb, Iran.
It's good stuff right here. Dennis, will you jack my headphones up? This is good. Let's be honest. We'll get out that much. This is good stuff right here. I mean,
this was from.
Hold on.
Yeah,
That's good stuff.
Yeah, when was this? 80?
I think this was like 81, 80, 79.
Yeah.
Whenever the hostage crisis was.
Right. So this is that's Reagan era.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Carter. Because remember, they got released before or right when Reagan took over, so it's Carter era. So for all of you who said the music in the 70s was horrible, it was until this song.
Supplies, get our hands and ties, and bring them back alive.
Yeah, bring it back alive. All right. Yeah. Thank you, Dennis. This song makes me happy. Outlaw Radio, it is the 22nd of June, 2025. Thanks for checking out the show. I have breaking news. One time. It's okay. Paul is going to be late.
Oh,
all right. But thanks for checking out the show, guys. We appreciate it. K-Dog Black Tom on camera. The CEO is off camera as normal. We have a special guest in studio. We're going to introduce you in a second. Boss Baby is at the Boss Baby Estates nursing home and pet sanctuary. And
nursing home.
I don't know. It made sense to me.
Dude, she's the baby of the crew. I mean, and
we're hoping to have a segment in the next week or two with her in the man shop, because I have some serious man shop Boss Baby questions to ask.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Oh, this can't go well.
Terry said the hostage crisis.
Those.
Terry said the hostage crisis was 80 and 81. Reagan ended it. Yeah, I think it started in 79 because Reagan took over in January of 81, and it was like 400 some odd days. So I think it would have had to have ended started at the beginning at the end of 79.
No, I thought it was 80.
Hold on.
Well, it definitely started on Carter's watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
November 4th, 1979.
Really?
Suck it. All
Okay.
right.
Hey, I was a little busy. Okay.
Oh, yeah. What were you doing?
My mom had cancer. I was a little busy. at the
How
hospital.
dare you? Like, we're having a nice, lighthearted conversation. Well,
And
what were
the-
you doing, Lori? My
and-
mother had cancer.
And the
How do you get back
Sonics
to
were
that?
making their championship run.
How
Come
do you
on now.
even? How do you even come back to that?
I know,
don't think
right?
you do.
That's why
Reminder:
I hesitated.
tonight's show brought to you by Black Ring Spirits, the official distillery of the Outlaw Radio Network. If you are not drunk, you probably need to be. Pick up your favorite spirits at Black Ring Spirits.
And
Right, Tom?
tonight's drinking game.
Yeah, the events of the past several days, I think weren't a good drinking game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could be red or wazoo.
Oh,
So here's the deal. Every 5 minutes that Paul's late tonight, your drinking game, every 5 minutes, take a shot. You should already be one in. And in another minute, you're going to get another one in, and you can be 2 shots down. So there you go.
every
Joining
5
us,
minutes?
joining us also on the Outlaw Radio Network casting couch, we'll introduce him to the stage, is the one and only member of the Paulsville City Council, good friend of the show, district representative for Paulsville for All, and chairman of the Ace Haynes for mayor candidacy. It's one and only Rick Eckert. Hello, Rick. What's up, buddy?
Hi, guys.
How you doing, man?
Rick?
Good. How are you?
Nothing I said was true except he is in the Paulsville City Council.
Yeah.
But I'm just here talking for myself tonight, as always.
Yeah, you're just representing yourself. You're not speaking for the district.
And there's nothing going on in the news. You wanted me to come down and just talk about movies tonight, right?
Yeah, there's nothing to talk about.
yeah, and Kevin, he's so well viewed in
Right.
all things cinema.
That's right. We're
I know that my computer's making system sounds, but if I mute the computer making system sounds, it will mute all the output. Okay, we'll work on that during the bumper break. So in the meantime, suck it up and deal with it. Okay, sorry, Rick. Go ahead.
That's okay. That's
No, there's nothing to talk about.
no, we got nothing. So
It's quiet. Like there's no Trump didn't bomb anybody, and Israel's not at war with anybody, and
yeah, nothing. It's quiet. All quiet.
so let's break down as of Sunday night at 7:10 p.m. And again, we're going to get into some local stuff with Rick's second hour. The original plan, God bless Rick, was that we were going to talk to Rick first hour because I don't like making a guest come down here and sit through this nonsense for an hour before we actually get to what we talked to them about. But I could not ignore what is going on.
You mean again?
Again. Shut up, Rick. How dare you? I cannot ignore what is probably the biggest development in years in this country. I would say since COVID, which is
Really?
yeah, Angelina Jolie's getting divorced again. No, I'm just kidding. No. What do you think is a bigger, more impactful story since COVID?
Afghanistan pullout.
And that's what she said. No, you don't think this is bigger than pulling out of Afghanistan? Like that was us leaving. This is us bombing a nation known to support terrorists, threatening to shut down the Strait of Hormuz, where 20% of the world's oil flows through. Some reports have it that Saudi Arabia and Egypt are a little perturbed at us for what we did to Iran.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is bigger. Do you agree?
I'm just saying that COVID and then Afghanistan and now Iran.
You think Afghanistan was still bigger than Iran?
No, it was the next biggest thing since COVID.
Okay.
COVID, we need to stop bringing up COVID.
Why?
Let it go.
Why? COVID was great. Listen, I don't.
COVID was a shit show.
COVID,
Yeah,
COVID was awful for just about everybody,
Mhm.
but me,
Why?
because I got to work from home. I got to spend quality time with the kids who went to school from home.
Mm-hmm.
I got to hang out around my aging parents for the last several years of their
True.
lives.
All true.
Like, I mean, the timing was perfect.
Yeah.
Like, if we could coordinate another mass pandemic to work around my schedule again, that would be swell.
Wow.
But no,
But the swelling's gone down.
the
Stop
swelling's
it.
gone down. Whatever, Tom.
We don't need another.
It's hard to take you and Lori seriously. You're both wearing Coug gear tonight.
On purpose.
So you guys did coordinate.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
great.
we
That's
told
great.
you
I hate
that.
you both. Why is it you'll wear Coug gear, but when I tell you to wear your sweater with the nipples cut out with your ornaments hanging for Paul, you won't do it?
That's seasonal.
It's always Christmas. It's always Christmas. So I want to break down what we know as of tonight. Now, again, if you're listening to this on the podcast later, some of this stuff is going to be different because there's going to be a rollout of information over the next several days as U.S. intelligence sites, and I use intelligence and the United States government in an oxymoronic kind of way.
Thank you.
But as they evaluate photos and do their research, collect their data, spooks on the ground, whatever.
And as we
Sorry, I keep hearing her phone ringing. Do you hear her phone ringing?
No, I'm hearing a lot of bass.
Oh, it's all about that bass. No trouble.
True.
Yeah. Go ahead, Tom. Sorry.
As we talk about all this stuff, are we going to get to the big question of why?
Well, yeah. First, I want to recap what we know.
Right.
Then we'll talk about why.
Okay. I think that's important.
Then we'll talk about now. And then we'll talk about what's next.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Okay. I like that.
Because I feel like, and I'll even give you a little teaser on the what's next question.
Oh.
Because Trump has already talked about that regime change in Iran may be possible.
Right.
And the question is, do we want to get into the business of regime change in the Middle East? Because we've done such a wonderful job of that in the past.
Yeah, our track record's great.
Yeah, I mean, Afghanistan, that was flawless. Iraq, that was just an amazing success.
Bang-up job.
Yeah, so
yeah, hey, keep going.
Syria.
There's a
Well,
Iran's got a very different situation on that, though.
Mm-hmm.
we'll get to that. Yeah, we'll get to that. We didn't do regime change in Syria. We had nothing to do with regime change. Regime change happened. It wasn't because that's who we wanted there.
We assisted.
Well, I mean, okay.
It was
you're fair.
another
No, you're right.
proxy
Okay.
war.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, we still have
Mark that.
we
somebody.
still have more decades to cover.
Kevin said
I
I'm
mean,
right.
there's Korea, there's Vietnam. I mean, we have a stunning track record.
No, regime change is not our cup of soup.
No.
Especially not in a part of the world that is so fundamentally different than us
Right.
in the way they think, in the way they believe, and what they want.
Their ethics,
Their ethics, their morals.
everything.
The fact that
Their
most of them
law.
still lives in caves and mud huts. You can't apply Western values to the people of Iran. And I'm not knocking them, but they are a completely different style of society than
It's a
we are.
different culture. Yes.
Yeah, Rick.
But before the revolution in the 70s, they
Yeah.
were very Western.
Yeah.
And very
And that's what I was
modern.
going to say.
Right.
I was reminded because I heard him
Mhm.
speaking this week. The crown prince,
Mhm.
so the son of the Shah who was deposed, dude's still alive.
Yeah.
He's only, he's in his 60s or maybe
Really?
70s. He's not very old. He was a teenager when it happened. He was
Oh wow.
he was
Okay.
basically he was in
I
the
thought he was
US in
older
flight
than
school.
that. Yeah. When
So
everything went
Yeah.
down.
if you think about it,
He could come
the
back.
people who were 20 when that happened are just, not that much older than us.
Yeah.
They
Sure.
remember what that country was like before the revolution.
Yeah, but
And
here's the
so
problem.
regime change in this sense, you've got an outside legitimate ruler, their monarchy
Right.
that's still out there, who said, I don't need to come back as the Shah, but I'll come back and help lead the country through its next phase.
Yeah.
So it's not us coming in, it's
Right.
somebody coming back.
Yeah.
But the problem is they're going to see whoever that new leader is as a puppet, whether he is or not, and I think Iran is pissed, rightfully so, right? Like, regardless of what you think about Iran, if you're an Iranian, you're pissed today. The U.S. sent some really cool stealth bombers over.
Mhm.
They dropped three massive payloads, 6 bombs, but 3 payloads.
I saw 12 or 14 last
or whatever.
Oh, the last count I heard was 6
and almost
of those
30
bunker
missiles
busters.
from the side.
They dropped some BABs, some big ass bombs, right?
Yeah.
In my country, I'd be pissed, regardless of whether or not the bombing is justified. We can talk about that. But if you're an Iranian citizen today, you're mad. You feel violated. Your airspace has been violated.
If
Your
you're a
country's been
citizen-
violated.
If you're a citizen who has a family member that's recently disappeared
Yeah.
or beaten for appearing in the streets in the wrong way,
Then you
I
want
don't
more.
know, you're not too mad.
Yeah.
You're only mad because it wasn't more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't the palace.
And not only that, but I mean, if Al Jazeera, the news outlet in that part of the world,
Mhm.
or even state media, although I doubt state media would do it, if they had
Israel already
announced-
blew them up.
Yeah, I know. But prior to that, 67 days ago, Trump sent a letter. Hey, get your poop together, or we're going to come visit, and not in a good way.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they did have notice.
So here's what we have.
Yep.
So again, over the weekend, Saturday our time, early Sunday local time in Iran. Although I don't believe they have clocks, they have sundials. The U.S. hit 3 key Iranian nuclear facilities. President Trump has come out and said, quote, that they were obliterated. But other officials are still saying
he's never prone to exaggeration.
No, not at all. No,
Never.
It's huge. The intelligence community has said we don't really know that yet. We've got some assessing to do, and I wouldn't expect. This is when I wish Trump would shut up, because if this mission is anything less than a success, he looks like a moron, right? If this success is like, well, they were off target, or well, they didn't do the damage, or well, we didn't hit the right place, then he just looks like an idiot. He needs to shut up and just say, we're going to let our intelligence analysts figure out what the extent is. We're optimistic we did a great job, whatever. But he can't not stick his foot in his mouth. However, the thought is it's going to be some kind of damage to Tehran's desire to have nukes. How much, we'll have to wait and see. So they dropped, according to this report, 12 bunker buster bombs on Iran's Fordo and Nance facilities. Tomahawk missiles were used and struck in Isfahan. Iran has denounced the attack. They've threatened the U.S. and Israel. Iran is now saying we really passed the point of diplomacy. The larger question as we get into the rest of the discussion is what's next. Was this a one-off for U.S. forces? Does this get us into cahoots even further with the Israelis? What is Israel's plan going forward? If this was successful in disabling or wiping out Iran's ability to come out with a nuke anytime soon, does Israel stop their assault on Iran as well? Was that the main goal, or is this going to turn into some kind of expanded boots on the ground by the Israelis? Does the U.S. want to put boots on the ground? If Israel, there's a whole bunch of different ways this thing can go. And the other rub to the whole thing is Iran is known for backing terrorist organizations. They support Hamas. They support Hezbollah. They support the Houthis and the Blowfish. And so the question is, what's next? Iran has already said we're going to shut down the Strait of Hormuz. Now, about 20% of the world's oil comes through the Strait of Hormuz.
And all of their oil goes out that way. So if they shut it down, they shut down all of their own exports.
Mm-hmm.
And most of that goes to China.
Yeah.
Which means China loses its major source of oil imports.
Let's
They're not going to be too happy about Iran doing that.
And it's going to have minimal impact on us because we're not set up to refine oil from that part of the world.
Yeah. And we don't bring it out through there anyway.
Right.
Yeah. It also would severely impact Kuwait because, that's Kuwait's only way to get shipping in and out. So that would be an issue for them. Would have a pretty dramatic effect on Saudi Arabia, although they do have the Red Sea as well. But it would have a big deal on them. And then it would have a significant impact on Iraq, because Iraq's only port is right there in the Persian Gulf. They have a really small sliver of land that goes down in between Kuwait and Iran. So that part so any oil coming out of Iraq is going to be impacted as well, because that's their only shipping point. Now, Jordan has essentially said our airspace is closed to the Israelis and the Iranians. You are not allowed to set things over us. That doesn't really make a difference. I think Israel's been doing it anyway. I think Iran's been doing it anyway, but Jordan's tried to close that.
Well, Jordan shot down missiles that Iran's launched over them.
Yeah.
And it all through this. So,
okay.
Yeah. They've not allowed them to shoot missiles over through their airspace.
It does make you wonder where this goes, right? How many of these nations would side with Iran, if any of them, at this point?
Well,
besides the rebels in where are the rebels at? Yemen. In Yemen. I mean, they're funded by them, but who else?
Right,
is
and they're at war with Saudi, so Saudi's certainly not going to. I mean, Iran has been proxy war with Saudi for years through the Houthis.
Yeah.
So Saudi and Iran are opposite sides of the fence.
I wonder how many Middle Eastern nations are quietly, like in their bedrooms with the doors closed, praying to their respective God that the U.S. is finally involved.
Well, most of those countries are not. I mean, they're not militarily strong. They're economically strong, but they're also economically strong because they don't take sides.
Right.
Dubai, all the Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Bahrain, they all just they're happy to let everybody come there and spend their money.
Yeah, they're very neutral.
Yeah, they stay out of it. Saudi and Iran, though, they've been fighting each other for years, just not directly. Egypt, that's the thing everybody kind of forget. Everybody sees that group all as one. I mean, Tom's brought it up. You've got Arabs, Persians, and Egyptians right there.
Yeah.
These are not all Arabs. They're not even all the same kind of Muslims. They're, Shiites and Sunnis. Bahrain split 80-20.
Yep.
Like they're not.
Then on top of the Shiites and Sunnis, we've got the Kurds and there's
and so it's
a half dozen other cultures in there.
Jews and Christians,
hardly homogenous. So Sunnis probably Saudi's probably going to sit back and just smile and nod and let it happen.
And look, if you look at that part of the world, don't, as Rick's saying, don't make the mistake of thinking that Iran is Iran because it's a country. Iran's a country because the West divvied it out that way. Yeah. Like, those borders were not drawn because there's a shared nationality and a whole bunch of history. And there's a reason why there's a straight line, right, between Iraq and Iran. The reason why the borders are there is because Great Britain and France and the United States and the Soviet Union at the end of World War II did a lot of map drawing, and they divided it as they wanted to. For Iraq and Iran, their borders across the tops of mountains.
Yeah. And they fought a very bloody war over that line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's the first question for the panel. Does anybody here besides me? Because I said on the show last Sunday, didn't I? That we needed to get involved because if Iran gets a nuke, that sucker's going to go off in Times Square or Los Angeles or Miami or Chicago or Seattle.
That's assuming Iran is able to make it that portable.
Well, again, if they can get a backpack nuke together, they don't need the delivery system.
But if they can get a backpack nuke together, they can put it on a rocket and launch it with less risk.
They just need it on the deck of a ship in New York Harbor.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't have to be small.
So if you're Iran and you want to hit Israel, what's easier? Trying to shoot a missile over Jordan or over some of these other countries and have the Iron Dome take it out? Or is it easier to get it on some unnamed boat, sail it up right off the coast of Israel, and then detonate it right off the coast of Israel? I mean, Israel's not a big country. And a nuke a mile off port from any of their major seaports,
that'll make a mess.
That's a significant thing, right?
It'll make a mess.
Yeah. Same thing with Los Angeles, same thing with San Diego, same thing with Seattle, same thing with Miami, same thing with New Orleans, same thing with DC. Float a boat up the Potomac.
That's unlikely.
Not unlikely. Is it?
Yeah, DC unlikely. New York, Boston,
Why do you think DC is unlikely?
Because they're getting something like that up the Potomac with all of the traffic and all of the, I mean, there is security.
Rick, you might know this better than me, but a nuke isn't huge.
No, I mean, even the World War II ones weren't that big. I mean, they were essentially cargo container pushed off, like a pallet pushed off the back of a plane. So,
yes, I mean, you could put that in a decent sized boat. You could.
Potomac's not a port, like a cargo port. That's why I keep thinking New York is the one I'd worry the most about.
Boston, any of the Eastern Seaboard.
Yeah, any of the big ports.
Richmond.
Because again, you pull a commercial ship, and the ship doesn't even have to know it's part of the plot.
No,
but a cargo container on the deck of a ship in New York Harbor at the right time of year, you decapitate the financial industry of the world.
Yep.
You could decapitate the UN.
Yep.
If they're in session.
Yeah.
You think 9/11 was bad. A nuke in New York Harbor. I mean,
world
Manhattan's gone because even what's not knocked down and blown up is irradiated.
Yep.
I mean, yes, we'll eventually come back and do something about it. But that's going to be a humanitarian disaster that we're going to have to be focused on to the exclusion of all else for how long? I mean, we're talking millions dead, dying, or, on their way because of the radiation. It would just be devastating.
Off the subject, at some point in this country, we're going to have the discussion about moving the capital and moving the financial district literally somewhere in the Midwest.
Yeah.
I mean, just for safety's sake.
Yeah, there's no reason to be where they are anymore.
No, not now. I mean, you're within easy range of a Russian sub with Tomahawk or their version of Tomahawk missiles on it. I mean, you could hit the White House, no problem. At some point as a nation, we have to talk about moving like to Topeka.
An ICBM can hit pretty much anywhere in
agreed.
North America.
And I'm not suggesting that you can be forever protected, but you can be more protected than you are now. Like, I still believe most nations are not going to use a nuke.
I agree.
Mutually assured destruction means they're not going to send an ICBM.
Right.
But if we got into war with Russia and nukes were off the table, they could still very easily hit DC and New York.
Right.
So you have to, at some point.
They can hit Topeka too.
Not as easily, though.
Well, it's a lot easier to defend.
Yeah.
You go from the Golden Dome back to the Iron Dome.
Yeah. Right. And you have an Iron Dome over that part of the country.
Right.
Yeah.
So Sean has some good points.
Well, no, he doesn't. Come on, Mahood. You've been a part of this show for years, and I'm still waiting. Go ahead. Just
a
kidding, Sean.
backpack nuke is tremendously difficult technical achievement, and also the Potomac is shallow. There aren't any commercial vessels. He would know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what
but
I'm
I don't
saying.
think you need a commercial vessel to do it.
A bigger one.
A shrimp trawler could probably carry
a New York harbor, a Baltimore harbor, these bigger harbors like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, you're right. I mean, DC would be a much more devastating target if they'd managed it, but I think they'll go for a city. They would go for a city first.
Maybe
one of the bigger East Coast cities. I mean, you could go into the Gulf and go for, one of the cities on the Gulf Coast.
Mm-hmm.
We've got huge ports. East, West, Gulf.
Yeah.
They're all over.
Houston,
DC,
Galveston.
Yeah.
Miami, Nolens, Mobile.
Yeah. Like you said, we have huge coastlines that are issues.
All right.
If somebody really wants to do that.
Does anybody besides me support the bombing?
I do.
You do. Okay, hold on. We're gonna come to you in a second because you and I are on the same page. Tom, do you?
I do
support?
not.
Okay. Lori, to you.
I need more data. What was hit? How much was hit?
Well,
I know what we say, but I want more data.
But regardless of how successful it was,
Mm-hmm.
do you support the premise, or are you still looking for data before you can make up that decision that you just don't have enough information?
I support the premise if there were truly nukes.
Okay, Tom,
that's where I'm at.
Why do you not support it? What's your concern?
First, development of a nuke is it's a lot more complex than the very black and white conversation that's been had about it. And Iran was a long way from being able to deliver a nuke anywhere.
Okay, what do you base that on? Because I've heard different things, right? Like Benjamin Netanyahu's been saying since 2006 that Iran was less than a year away.
Yeah, and he's been saying that 06.
But at some point he's going to be right. So why do you believe they're still years away?
But
and I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm asking.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I just read an article and I don't remember who wrote it, but the premise of the article was that Iran is just in their infancy of being able to put together, enriched plutonium, etc. And just going from that step to being able to weaponize it is just. It's not simple work. And they don't, yes, they just got, what was it? $6 billion or whatever from Papa Joe. But I mean, it's
the big
not,
guy.
Yeah.
The big
yeah,
guy.
The
Come
big
on
guy.
Big guy.
But it's not a cheap endeavor.
How you doing, Joe?
And it takes resources that Iran just doesn't have plentiful amounts of. So the action on Iran, The last I heard was Israel was going to go. Right. Israel said, "Yep, we're doing it, and here's the date. U.S., you're welcome to join us if you want." Right. But Israel said, "No, we can take out all 3 targets on our own." Great, fine. We should have left it at that. We didn't need to be involved.
Okay.
But Trump had already sent a letter or missive or whatever you want to call it.
Sure. I mean, but I don't think he should have done that either. I mean, there's no need for us to be involved in that part of the world.
And I agree with your premise on the resources, but you have to understand in that part of the world, the haves and the have-nots educationally are vast.
Huge.
And there are contractors who are willing to go in.
Sure.
But there are highly, highly technical, educated IT and scientists in that part of the world who keep a very low profile.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when they're called upon,
it's lucrative.
Yeah. They make the money, they get in, they get out, and they're
gone.
Couple comments in chat. Margie said Papa Joe, Joe Biden, not to be confused with his brother, Papa John, the pizza guy. Sean said nukes are so 1988. The real threat is massive cyber attack, and nowhere is immune from that. Agreed. However, the fundamentalist regimes want death, carnage, and a big story, big shock value, right?
So it'll be on the news.
Yeah, I don't, and a massive cyber attack by the Iranians is going to be a huge inconvenience. It's not going to kill tens of thousands of people.
It could. It would just take longer.
Yeah, but if they got a nuke, they would be just instantaneous hits with their 72-year-old virgins or whatever.
It's 72 virgins, not 72-year-old.
I have not read the Quran. I have not interpreted the Quran. Maybe when they interpret it, they just missed the word. Like a lot of those pages are torn and old and frayed. So maybe the original text said you get 72-year-old virgin. And we just saw 72 virgin because the year was on the torn part of the page. Right there at the hem on the inside of the spine. Yeah.
Hey,
imagine how pissed off you'd be, right? Like you and 8 of your buddies. You and 8 of your buddies just flew airplanes into a whole bunch of buildings in the US and you're dead. And you go to whatever Allah heaven is or whatever, and you show up there and they're like, we're here for our 72 virgins, and here out comes Brenda in a walker with no teeth. There's your 72-year-old virgin. Knock yourself out. Anyway.
The what ifs abound.
David said you can literally destroy facilities, but you can't bomb an idea out of existence. No, you can't. But again, without the facilities, it makes it a lot harder to make the bombs. It makes it a lot harder to test. It makes it a lot harder to have the research and the capabilities and machinery and the equipment. You can't listen. I can't go into the kitchen and whip myself up a nuke with leftovers in the pantry.
No,
there's a specific technical skill set and a specific set of machinery and infrastructure you have to have in order to pull that off.
Hell, just creating the core of the bomb. I mean, you've got to do something very difficult, and that's make a perfect sphere.
Yeah. Lila, the speculation of Iran is off the charts. Iran is much more different than your westernized propaganda slop you consume and believe. You all sound like Ted Cruz, who doesn't know anything about Iran. Lila, I love that you come into the room to tell us how wrong we are. How about you tell us what you think instead of telling us how wrong we are? Because if I wanted to be told on a daily basis how wrong I was, I would have stayed married. Rick, why do you support it? Why do you think this was the right time?
So some of what you said last week, but then I also heard a very good analysis.
So what I said last week was right.
I think so.
Which is that we have to get Iran out of the nuke game before they develop a nuke, because once they develop a nuke, they will use it even without a delivery system to either hit Israel or a U.S. target.
Yeah, they don't need a missile to deliver. Like I said, I'm much more worried about a boat.
Yeah, me too.
But I heard another analysis that I hadn't considered, and it actually makes a lot of sense, a scary sense. So Iran gets a nuke. That means Saudi needs a nuke. Yeah. That means Turkey needs a nuke. That means, and what essentially happens.
Well, Turkey has nukes. They have our nukes, right?
I don't believe so.
We took the nukes out of Turkey
at one point had missiles. But
after
they were still
Cuban
ours.
Missile Crisis. Yeah.
Right. But what it does is it causes a domino proliferation in that part of the world, and none of them have second strike capability, which means you have a whole bunch of countries with limited nuclear capability who all are essentially incentivized to strike first
And trigger happy.
because they know they can't survive and strike back like us and Russia.
Yeah. I hadn't thought about that. If
I
the
hadn't either,
Lebanese
and
had
that's
a nuke,
scary.
if the Lebanese had a nuke, they'd have used it against Israel years ago.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And Israel would be much more likely to use it first because they know they can't survive a strike. Like you said, it's a small country. Turkey, Saudi, all of them the same way. They don't have the ability to absorb an incoming strike and then strike back. So they have to strike.
Yeah.
And that's a scary prospect in, like we said, a bunch of countries that for thousands of years were people who did not get along.
Yeah.
You know, and so again, they're not one mindset, one culture, one ethnicity. They're all very different, and they're fake lines on a map that mostly the British forced in, but we can't let that happen.
Yep.
And this is a way to make it not happen without what you said last week of having to bomb them all away.
Yeah.
Because I do think the Iranian people deserve a chance to get rid of this regime, go back to what they were in the 70s. I think they've tried a few times in the last 5-10 years, but the Iranian National Guard or the Revolutionary Guards just waiting to shoot them down if they try. So I think that's where Israel will go next. I think Israel will focus on degrading the Revolutionary Guard to the point that gives the Iranian people a chance to do something.
Well, and here's the other thing too, right? I support the strike as it was carried out. It was very targeted.
Yeah, surgical and on just on the nukes.
Just on the nukes facilities. If that's where we leave it, so let's assume this operation was a success. They have wiped out those facilities, and the Iranians cannot manufacture nukes. If that's where they leave it, I'm good.
As long as the Iranians leave it there too.
Yeah.
Now,
well, again, I mean, if the Iranians start rebuilding, then we'll
well, they don't
evaluate
start
that.
shooting at our bases in Bahrain and Qatar, and you know. Now, I did hear today that basically the Navy sortied. None of our ships are in port over there. Airfield in Qatar's empty. Like we basically took everything mobile out. But if they start, going after conventional targets conventionally, because they still have conventional forces, then they've escalated.
Yeah.
Now it's a whole different story.
Yeah.
But
as long as they leave it as it is, given where we're at today, and like you said, that could all change if they were to go after Qatar or
I think they launched like one
Kuwait
missile at
or
Israel after this happened.
Yeah.
I thought there was quite a bit more of a counterstrike against Israel. Like immediately
as I was
after
driving
the-
down, they talked about the one missile that was launched. It was like a sort of like a, like we're shooting back, but it's just one, kind of a.
Oh, I thought I had heard
still
that
here.
there was a drone swarm and like a significant missle strike.
Maybe that was
against
just
Israel.
tonight then.
Yeah,
They were
maybe.
talking about it as I was driving down here.
Yeah,
so it was-
I've been trying to kind of keep up with it amongst like life.
Yeah.
So Lila says, because I asked Lila, why don't you just tell us what you think?
Mhm.
And Lila, I'm going to pick on you for a second. Rather than say what he thinks, this is his response, because it's easier to say you're wrong in a chat room. Lila feels like I do that on purpose. I really don't. I'm sorry. Lila said it's because it's easier to say you're wrong in a chat room. It's in the hope, and I'm stupid for thinking it, that one would go out and read other sources and what you're consuming now. Iran is much larger, much more population, quite different than Iraq. I understand that Americans believe the Middle East is just desert, but it's not. There's a reason why the area is the cradle of civilization, the reason why they fight a lot. In World War I and World War II, Western powers drawing made-up lines through, and then it cuts off. So, again, I don't dispute all of that. But this is what I hate about the argument that we get from the left. And Lila, I love you, and I'm glad you're a part of the show, and I'm sorry that I misgendered you again because I am a fucking idiot. I do it all the time, and I don't know why. But other than the fact that I'm an idiot. But when I asked you to tell me what you thought, to have the conversation and the dialogue, your response was, honestly, thank you for that. It's easier just to tell you that you're wrong. Like, do you understand how cockamamie that is? He said cock. Do you understand how ludicrous that is? Like, I asked you to say, Lila, what do you think? And you said, rather than tell you what I think, let me just tell you that you're wrong. And that's what's wrong with political discourse in this country.
Well,
I hope
so-
you'll share what you think.
Right. So she said, you know,
And I
you
never
should-
hold on. And I never said anything about comparing Iraq to Iran, like at all. In fact, we specifically said that Rick specifically said, and I agreed with him. Every country there is different. Their populational makeup is different.
Well,
their ethnic makeup is different. There is no congruency down there.
Well, the problem is the way the map was drawn after World War II, like we were talking about. You know, all those straight
Some
lines
of it before then, but yeah,
yeah, those are not cultural lines.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's no such-
they're not putting you know, which one of these is not like the other.
Yeah.
You know, they're
There's
not
no such thing as an Afghani.
right. Those lines are not
Right.
They're not along cultural lines. They're not along traditional lines. They're not along anything that makes sense.
And guess what? It's
other than
not
just
Iran.
lines on a map.
It's not Iran.
Actually, it's their money. I correct myself.
Persia.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure.
Right.
They're Persians.
Mm-hmm.
Right. The Iraqis are.
Yeah.
But
No,
don't-
Iranians.
Iranians.
Yeah, well, some of them, but
Yeah.
that's not the
Iraqi. That's more. They were more the Babylonians.
right. And again, some of them.
We keep going back. Yeah, that's the thing.
But listen, the
How far
point
back do
is,
we want to go?
the point is, listen, I'm not a warmonger, dude, right? Like in my day job, every single day, I get to research and identify the effects of what happens when we send our men and women into war zones. So I'm not a warmonger, but I am terrified at the premise that Iran would develop a nuke, regardless of your arguments about populational makeup or how many people live there or what the borders should be or who they are, what they've been through. The idea that a rogue nation that supports terrorism could come up with a nuke scares the bejeebies out of me. And it's not just Iran. If it were Syria, if it were Jordan, if it were Kazakhstan, if it any of these, the problem with these nations getting a nuke is not really in the fact that they have a nuke. The problem is that they have a nuke and they can't put in security processes to protect the nuke once they have it. Like I said on last week's show, Russia has a nuke, and Russia's not a very stable nation, but you know what they have? Really good protection around their nukes because they don't want the Chechens to get a hold of one of their nukes and use it against them. So they have these nukes, but they're in really state-of-the-art facilities because the Russians don't want nobody to get them. Literally, Iran is going to get a nuke, and they're going to put it out back in a goat shed. And they're going to pray that nobody sneaks up behind the goat shed dressed as a sheep and hijacks one of their nukes. They don't have the security or the awareness or the functional ability to maintain the security of that nuke. And then where does that nuke go? That nuke then becomes as likely to be used against the U.S. or Israel or a Western ally as it does to be used against the Iranians themselves. Or God forbid the Shiites use it against the Sunnis or vice versa. Like this isn't even like a whole pro-US thing, although it mostly is for me. But I don't want that nuke floating around the world waiting for somebody to use it. Because the Iranians, the Kazakhstans, the Syrians, the Lebanese, they don't have the systems to protect it.
Well, they also wouldn't have the arsenal that you're envisioning. They're not going to have a U.S.-sized arsenal. They're going to have 2 bombs.
2 bombs is still immensely terrifying.
That's where we started.
One is immensely terrifying.
And by the way,
yes,
Go
no,
ahead,
I
Nick.
agree with that.
I mean, that's and I'm not a warmonger either. I've been to war. I've been to Afghanistan.
Yeah.
I've been in the Persian Gulf. I've had Iranian Navy vessels up alongside my ship, shining lasers into the hangar. Close, I've spent days on end where we had to go to alerts every couple hours because they were coming at us with their speedboats, and we had to go to alert because you never know what they're going to do.
Right.
I've been there.
Yeah.
So like Lila said, a lot of Americans don't understand. I've been there.
Yeah.
I've been in the DMZ. I've had
Oh, have
North
you?
Korean
I'd love to go to the
soldiers staring through windows at me in the peace houses.
And they have weapons trained on you.
Oh yeah. 'Cause
Just in case.
The North Koreans have weapons at the DMZ. The South Koreans don't. The South Korean soldiers on the literal line between those countries aren't allowed to be armed so that the North Koreans can't provoke them into fighting and saying they got shot. So they aren't even allowed to have weapons so that there's no mistakes. But I've been to these parts of the world, and I don't ever want to see us get into another war here, but it's worse if we ignore it and then New York Harbor goes up in a blinding flash, or DC, or Savannah, or I mean any of these places. Seattle, it's Riyadh, like you said, who knows where it can go? It can be anywhere. London,
Well, and here's the really scary part, right? And again, Sean had a great point that nobody in Iran is going to dress up as a sheep because it's way too dangerous. But somebody steals that nuke, it's also just as likely they steal it, sell in the black market, and then you don't know where it goes.
Yeah.
And then it could go to anybody with any kind of an axe to grind. It could be picked up by white supremacists in Idaho that are pissed off at the overreach of the federal government and decide to detonate a nuke in DC to prove a point. It could be picked up by Canadian separatists that want to liberate all the what do they call them? The Free Nations, or what do they call them in Canada?
Yeah.
No, the Native American, the Indian tribes, but they're the
First Nations.
First Nations. Then they could detonate it in Ottawa I mean, again, none of these things are likely, but they're not impossible.
Well,
and if you have a nuke on the black market floating around, and you don't know what radical group with a bunch of money gets a hold of it, then you don't know who to protect, and you don't know who to save. And Lilat, you brought up North Korea. I'm not afraid of North Korea and a nuke.
No.
Because North Korea is China's bitch. And before North Korea would set off a nuke, China'd be like, hey, just so you know, guys, you got like 1 or 2 nukes. And if you use it, the U.S. is coming for you. And we're not going to get involved and bail your ass out.
Nope.
And so I'm not as worried about North Korea with a nuke. I'm more worried about North Korea nuclear for their own country, because when they screw it up, and they will, it's their own country that's going to go in the dark, and their own people that are going to die from radiation sickness. But what do you do when these rogue nations can get a hold of a nuke and they can't provide security and they can't protect it, and then it floats around?
Yeah.
Like, I guarantee you right now, Lilat is like, Lilat said fear-mongering about nukes. And who has them? Israel has nukes. Does Israel have nukes, or do we just have our nukes in Israel?
Israel's never admitted it.
Yeah, they haven't
It's
admitted.
Okay.
Yeah.
Everybody knows it.
Pakistan has nukes. India has nukes. Both of those are true. And by the way, it's a damn good thing they both have nukes, because if only one of them had nukes, the other one wouldn't exist.
Yeah.
Like God's honest truth. In that part of the world, the deterrent philosophy has worked. If Pakistan had nukes and India didn't, India would not exist right now, and vice versa.
True.
Sure, it doesn't even just have to be nukes.
God damn it! Now I'm so mad. Is that better not be true? I swear to God.
What?
God damn it! How did the Thunder win the NBA title? How does that happen? How do they take our team out of Seattle, move them halfway across the goddamn country, change their name, give them stupid-looking uniforms, and then they get to win a title? Oh, sons of bitches. Okay, go ahead.
Let them all close. Anyway, and
Well, it wasn't closed till just then.
Stationed in
I'm
England
trying not to
during
swear on the air
9/11.
anymore either. Like, I'm really trying to do better. And then the Thunder win the NBA title.
Hey,
that's so not cool.
Let Rick talk.
Go ahead, Rick.
Then you won't swear.
I was stationed in England during 9/11.
And where?
And I remember in England.
Oh, I thought you said India. I'm like, we have bases in India?
No.
Okay. All right.
And I remember the concern of what was next. Because the trade towers, Pentagon, but you didn't know what was next.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the bases over there that I used to visit from where I was, there were a lot of British protesters that used to go there, and because they thought it was a base related to nuclear weapons. It wasn't, but they thought it was part of our nuclear system. And so they would the same group that protested Bangor used to protest there. And something the British do, I don't know why, but when they protest, they like to wear big foam rubber costumes. They love foam rubber costumes.
They like to
wear
put
them
an
in
E
game
after
shows.
every R,
They
too,
protested
so-
them, and they would have these big Trident missile foam rubber costumes that they would wear when they would be outside the gate. And then after 9/11, the security part of that gate, because I was in security, that's who I talked to, they had to seriously think about it and say, okay, these folks are harmless. They're protesters. They've never done anything wrong. They've never been violent. But how do we know that there isn't somebody in the middle of that group with one of those suits on,
Yep.
with a suicide vest under it.
Yep.
That's not part of the group, but just mixes themselves in.
Yep.
And the next thing you know, when they rush the gate, because they used to like to rush the gate, because they got 2 guards, each guard grabs 2, everybody else gets on.
Yeah.
And then is running around the base in their foam rubber trident missile suits. And it was just
Did they
chaos,
look like
but-
giant dildos in those?
they were pointy, but
Pointy, okay, pointy dildos, all right.
But it would just cause chaos. But now you've got, is there somebody with a suicide vest? They had to take that very seriously and change their tactics.
Yeah.
Because now it was, we just don't know. And that's the kind of you have to think about those things. So it's not just, sure, nuke is the worst case scenario because it's the most devastation, the most damage. It leaves the radiation behind. But if Iran could get to us with a conventional missile, anybody thinks they wouldn't? I mean, they're doing it to Israel every day.
Yeah.
Israel builds apartment buildings with bunkers in them.
Yeah.
That's the reality of their existence.
And by the way, Israel has something we don't have.
Yeah.
The Iron Dome. How Israel has an Iron Dome and we don't is befuddling to me because they're using our technology to have the Iron Dome in
they're
the first
small
place.
enough to be covered by
Yeah.
a system.
We do have a significant missile defense system in Alaska.
Yeah, but it's not. But again, it's not.
And speaking of the
Can't
bunkers,
cover the continental United States. It's
You
a little
certainly
too
could.
big. It's a little too big.
You certainly could. Every state would have to have its own. You would put it in
a whole
put it
lot
in
of THAAD
sectors.
systems.
Yeah, a
but back
whole lot
to
of-
the bunkers, I thought it was
Archie, Edith?
interesting. No, interesting that Israel News last week reminded everybody, you need to go to the bunkers. We're serious. Go to the bunkers now
Well, you get desensitized.
because they're so
That happened
desensitized
to our
about being
that happened
hit.
to our folks in Iraq.
Yeah.
You got used to the stuff going off, the alerts going off, and people wouldn't go into the bunkers. And they had to say, seriously, you need to go. Because mortar attacks and missile attacks, and you just never knew. And so I consider myself extremely lucky, an extremely lucky Afghan vet where I never had any of that happen. I was, as Paul's service would say, in the rear with the gear. I never left the fence line, but our fence line got attacked. And so I mean,
Yeah, but guys on horseback with slingshots, that's not very scary.
Well, and they made a mistake because I was with folks that you didn't want to attack.
Yeah.
And
Were you with Marines?
No.
SEALs?
Keep going.
Delta.
And
Delta? Delta?
put it this
Recon?
way, our guards on the fence had to tell everybody to go back to their hooches because they were afraid to shoot the wrong people because our guys looked like them. So I was actually in I worked at a detainee facility. So but it was still dangerous. I remember walking down one day in the street and looking up and seeing an aircraft going on overhead, and then all of a sudden it started shooting flares everywhere. And that's just like, that's a sphincter tightening experience because you're like, why are they shooting flares? What's coming in?
Yeah.
Like these are all things that those folks are living with every single day.
Yeah. By the way, breaking news, Nancy and I are now friends on Facebook. So, so Tom, just so
Let
you
the
know,
games begin.
just so you know, Nancy and I are able to have some late night chat conversations. We can exchange some nutty selfies. It's
Kevin,
it's a good time. Man.
Kevin, she would kill you.
She is.
She would kill you.
Praying mantis. It'd be great. Nancy, how you doing, Nancy? You don't know, but me and his aunt have a thing going on. It's
I hear all
full of passion. Full of passion. So much
I
passion.
see the steam coming off his head.
Oh, so much
over the
passion.
screen.
So much passion.
That's why you have a chair between you.
You know what she loves? You know what she loves when I whisper in her ear? You know what she loves me to whisper in her ear?
What?
I'm going to do things to you that Tom's going to be mad about. That's great. Awesome. Yeah.
Thank
okay.
You, thank you, Kevin.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dennis. God,
Nancy, how you doing, baby? Lylan said that's fear mongering about a situation. We need to figure out why these people want to do that. Bin Laden stated why he did it in his letter to America. No one cares. It's about American imperialism and colonization and being the arms supplier for the world. Our country creates these people. Lylan's not wrong. Like, American imperialism is the root of a lot of this. Like, you can't go in and create regime change all over the world and expect there not to be pushback. You can't use nations for resources and expect there not to be pushback. You can't oppress brown countries and expect there not to be pushback. However, forgive me, if I don't want to read the letter from the dude who was responsible for killing 3,000 plus American innocent people, including innocent women and children, by flying planes into multiple buildings. If you think I'm going to read his letter and take anything that he says seriously, you're out of your mind. War should be fought between combatants. War should be fought between soldiers who signed up to fight. War should not be fought by people waging them on uninformed, unsuspecting civilians. Now, that goes out the window in major military conflict. That's why I don't have an issue with the carpet bombing of Dresden. But if you're Al-Qaeda and you want to make a point, you don't take airlines full of unwitting civilians and fly them into office buildings full of unwitting civilians.
Those aren't, the problem is those aren't unwitting civilians in this conversation.
But again, you can twist your logic however you want to if you're Al-Qaeda. In the end, they're unwitting civilians.
Right, but
they didn't sign up to fight. They're not on the front line. They're at home doing their normal daily jobs, their normal lives. They're flying with their families. There's little babies on the frickin' plane.
Agreed.
And as long as they do that, I can't support them.
Agreed with all of that, but those aren't civilians. Those are Christians, and Christianity is the enemy.
But they're not necessarily Christians. There were Muslims on those planes that weren't affiliated with them.
Yep.
There were atheists on those planes. There were Sunnis and Shias and who were the people in India with where the funny hats? The Sikhs? Yeah.
Sikhs and Buddhists.
Yep. But
and some vegans were on there too, and they probably deserve to die.
What I don't understand is if it's all back to imperialism, why is it all aimed at us and not the British? Because the British did
the British do get some. Though,
I mean, even Tehran, even in Iran in the 70s, it was the British, it was BP that was there taking their oil. It was the British and the Russians fighting over their oil when the revolution happened. It wasn't US oil companies there.
Yeah.
It was British and Russians.
Totally agreed. And I don't know why they don't go after the other countries, but and I do think a lot of it is because a lot of us call ourselves a Christian nation. We are the largest, most powerful military in the world.
That
we have a ton of influence, more than any other nation in the world. So I think all that comes into play. But I don't like to
into play because we're, like you said, a Christian nation. So those planes were not full of civilians; they were full of Christians.
Regardless, Lilet has a point. American exceptionalism, the Monroe Doctrine, the American colonization of the world, overextending ourselves, getting ourselves involved in places we shouldn't be, not taking the moral high ground we should have. Like, you can't convince me to this day why it made sense for us to send troops into Bosnia-Herzegovina and not to send troops in South Sudan during the genocide in South Sudan. You cannot convince me we should have done one and not the other.
Why?
Because
what's in Sudan for us?
What was in Bosnia-Herzegovina for us is my point.
I believe there's oil in Bosnia.
Well, but again, we didn't say we were going there for oil. We said we were going there because of ethnic cleansing.
Yeah, we
and
want
if that was your,
we
if that was
there for influence, though.
But again, if we're going to be intellectually honest, which we're not, if we're going to be intellectually honest, then tell the truth. Why are you going into Bosnia-Herzegovina? Is it because of the oil? Is it because of natural resources? Is it because they're it's a white nation run by white people and you want to back up white governments? Say that. But if you say we're going there to stop ethnic cleansing, and the ethnic cleansing in South Sudan was far worse and far more dramatic than what we saw in Bosnia, and you couldn't be bothered to go in there and try to stop that?
There's no resources there for us.
Again, well, I would think that there's oil in South Sudan. Like Africa literally is floating on an oil lake. That's all I'm saying. Like, I can't look at Lilet and say you're wrong when the mountain of evidence of what we've seen, here comes my leftist out of me. When the mountain of evidence of what we've seen as this country is us waging war against brown people.
Yeah, I mean,
the only white nation we waged war against was white nations, and I'm not counting British because that was a whole different time. In modern times, Israel, Germany. Everybody else we fought are brown nations. Vietnam, Korea, Afghanistan, Iraq, Panama. What?
You said Israel. You mean
Oh, did I
Italy?
say Israel? I'm sorry, I meant Italy. Yeah, Italy and Germany. That's it. That's it. So when people like Lilac come out and say, you know, the U.S.'s actions around the world has implications, it certainly does. And we are in now. Again, you could argue if it's right or wrong. You could argue if the strikes were good or bad. I think they were warranted given where we're at. But nobody with a brain can deny the fact that this weekend we just inspired another nation of 5 to 25-year-olds to become suicide bombers. We just created a new generation of potential terrorists.
I think the 5 to 25-year-olds are the ones they're having the most trouble with. It's more the 50 to 70, like it's the 40 to 50-year-olds.
I hope you're right.
Are the ones that back the regime. It's the young ones don't like it.
Yeah.
And the 60 and over remember the good old days, you know, before the regime. So I think it's more the middle age that are keeping this thing going. But I would say everything after Korea, you're right. Our foreign policy is a mess.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we used to back Iran or Iraq. We used to switch sides every couple of years just to pick on who got a bigger military, you know. And so I think Bosnia probably was as much just because of our ties to Europe.
Yeah.
We got sucked into that because of our ties to Europe and our alliances in NATO and all that as anything. And there was nobody to pull us into into Sudan and Rwanda and those, because again, they should all be mad at the British. But anyway.
Yeah. So here we're going over with the bumper break, and I appreciate Dennis for being uber flexible. I don't know, you didn't know this, but Dennis can do the splits. But hey, what's next? So I'm going to ask all of you guys the same question. What is the end result of this? And I'm going to give you a couple of options, and if I don't give you the option, you can pick one that you like. Okay. Option number one: this leads to full-fledged war between the U.S., Israel, and Iran. Okay. Option number two is full-fledged war with Israel and Iran, and the U.S. is kind of out of it with the exception of supplying arms, bombs, hookers, whatever to Israel. Okay. Option number three is it still becomes a giant petting zoo where they just shoot missiles and stuff at each other until eventually they reach an IAEA deal. Okay. Option number four is Iran rushes to the table right away and says, we tap out. Like you had the crippler crossface on me like Chris Benoit. I'm out. I tap. Lori, what do you think comes out of this?
I'm going to go with either 2 or 4.
Okay. Which is either 4, which was Iran runs to the finish line to get a deal in place.
Yeah.
Or 2, which was Israel and Iran full-fledged war. The U.S. is kind of out of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Rick?
I think it stays mostly lobbing missiles and aircraft at each other. I don't see us or Israel putting a single boot on the ground anywhere. I could see Iran deciding their pride means they got to strike back. And they do something stupid, shoot at one of our ships, shoot at one of our bases, and then Trump says, "I warned you," and you know their oil facilities become no more, or their naval base there by the Strait of Hormuz becomes no more.
Yeah.
Like I can see it going that route, but I said I don't see us putting a single boot either country because Israel's too small, and we're not going to do it. That's where Trump's no new wars is going to kick in hard, and he's not going to put soldiers back over there, and we don't need to. I mean, you said it last week, and they already showed it. They only used part of one submarine, you know, and we've got 2, I think 2 and one more on the way. Naval battle groups, carrier battle groups, plus destroyers in the Red Sea, plus destroyers in the Med. We don't need to put anybody on the ground. So, and thinking that after that, they'll do something stupid, that'll happen, and then they'll come to the table.
Okay. Tom?
I think things are a little more
nuanced.
No, well, maybe nuanced or complicated or whatever. I think one of the reasons that Israel is staying on the offense is I've been reading that Netanyahu is under some investigation for some corruption and some bribery, and he has been for a long minute, and so the best way to avoid that is to stay in constant conflict.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's some CYA on Netanyahu's part, and I think he's kind of pulling the United States into something that we really don't need to be involved with.
Yeah. Okay. Let me give mine. I think the U.S. involvement is done. I think this becomes very much like what we saw Trump do with Syria. Remember, Syria launched attacks against some of the Kurds, right? Trump launched a strike against the airbase that the attacks were launched through, and then Trump didn't do anything else. Then it was over. It was done. Trump made his point. The Syrians realized Trump's point, and they were done. We can move those if you want, Paul. Here, you want to, yeah. So now, as far as Israel and Iran, I don't see this ending until there's regime change in Iran. I don't.
What about Israel?
Yeah,
Israel's not going to have.
gone.
Hold on. Hold on. Let me answer your question.
Okay.
Israel will not have a regime change. They might swipe out Netanyahu, but they're not.
Isn't that a regime
No,
change?
because whoever comes in is not going to be too far off from who Netanyahu is. I mean, there might be some. It's like here in the U.S., right? We might go from Biden to Trump to AOC, but we don't really have a regime change. We just have an administration change, but the fundamentals of our government remain the same. It's the same thing with Israel. Netanyahu might fall.
Okay, you need to tell 98% of the United States that what you just said.
I'll let them know.
Yeah.
I'll start making phone calls. So if Israel changes leaders, it's not going to be a complete total regime change. If Iran changes government, it will be a top-down complete restructuring of how Iran runs, their religious rules, parliament, the whole kit and caboodle.
Theocracy back to a monarchy.
Or something. But I think whatever happens, it will continue to happen until there's a regime change in Iran with Israel. Paul's here. Hello, Paul.
It's
good to see you.
It's good to see you.
Why are you wearing that hat so low? Are you trying to cover your face?
No.
Okay. What's on your mind?
It's
What do you
all
think,
good.
bud?
It's all good. I mean, I love the conversation. I think this is good conversation. It's the kind of conversation that people should be having around this country right now. Unfortunately,
he thinks we're all wrong.
I love when Paul shows up an hour late to tell us how wrong we are.
No, not you guys. I said sitting around in the country right now.
Okay, all right.
Time out. Time out.
Yes, go ahead. Dear.
If you're following along on the drinking game, please call your designated buddy because you've had 21 shots now.
Yeah, no, it was 5 minutes and it's been an hour.
No.
Oh, so it would be 12 and then it would be 14 shots. You'd be 14 shots.
No. They've also come up with their own.
Oh, did they come up with their own? Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Anyways.
By the way, Nancy, I see you're in chat. How you doing, baby? Go ahead, Paul.
Sorry, Paul. Go.
It's okay. I may not catch the relevance, but I catch the relevance.
I mean, Nancy got a thing going on.
My point was just that, again, the conversation you guys are having is good conversation. It needs to happen more often. But unfortunately, the general population of this country are just freaking morons, and they don't take the time to educate themselves on these issues. They don't know the difference between Sunni, Shia, Arab, Muslim, Persian. Like those are huge distinctions. The people in Iran are Persian. Okay,
some of them.
Not
Jesus Christ.
You know what song I have stuck in my head right now? Do you want to know?
I'm sure.
No, go ahead. I'll do it after you're done. Go ahead.
Tell me.
No, go ahead after you're done. I'll do it after you're done.
Okay. So, even hearing, this is all the fault of American imperialism. Okay, listen. Crack a fucking book.
Not all the fault, but go ahead.
Listen. That's like saying America's responsible for slavery. Okay, yeah, there was an involvement, but we didn't fucking catch them and throw them on a boat. Okay,
we didn't start it. As Billy Joel said, we didn't start the fire.
That was the Portuguese.
Right. Well,
and
the other African tribal leaders, right?
When the idea of slavery goes back, 2,000 years before that.
They were in the Bible, by the way.
In every culture on planet Earth,
right?
Native Americans had plenty of slaves. Don't hear you bitching at them.
Yeah.
So listen,
that's a human.
But that's
condition.
the whole point is that simple, right? Nobody understands all the nuance. Nobody.
I do.
Therefore, nobody should pretend like what they say is gospel because nobody knows, right? We can speculate based on certain things, right? We can say, hey, my opinion was this, was evolved as a result of these actions by other people, right? The idea that American imperialism is responsible for the world's evils, all right, it's no different than saying, sudden infant death syndrome is as a result of aspirin. Like, there's just no goddamn correlation. Okay,
because before there was American imperialism, there was Spanish imperialism.
Well,
or French,
for that matter.
Brits.
Nobody's gonna have the same definition of imperialism.
Yeah, and the don't forget the Greek or the Chinese
and the Romans before that.
Yeah,
and
the Romans,
and it goes on and on, right?
Yeah, they've only been around 249 years.
Yeah, we can't possibly be responsible for every goddamn problem.
No.
Yeah, but again. There are, and I've always hated this, and we've heard people over the years say this stuff, the people on the left hate America, right? I don't think they hate America at all. I don't know. I know. I'm
Really?
Lori's over there surprised. No, they don't hate America. They're not smart enough to hate America. I mean, you legitimately, no, I mean it, right?
Paul.
Paul, listen, I'm not the one running around this and being like, we never should have bombed Iran. First of all, to say that shows a real lack of understanding of the issues over there. Okay. Rick nailed the head on that nail early on in the conversation when he talked about the proliferation that would occur if Iran had a bomb. Then Saudi'd want one. Jordan would want one. Syria would want one, right? That spreads like a cancer.
Yep.
And there's no getting around it. And that's not even getting into the conversation about how, I don't know, Iran thinks that if you're Jewish, you don't have a right to be alive. Kind of a big deal. When people on planet Earth, especially governments, tell you who they are, you should listen, right?
Or they show you.
Yeah.
And they're tell me they're not showing, right? They've been showing. They've been supplying through proxy organizations the ability for groups like Hamas and others to attack the Israelis. And if somebody's going to sit there and say Iran hasn't done anything, you're too stupid to procreate.
And they've attacked us.
Absolutely.
It's not. I mean, that's the. I saw just a laundry list.
Yes.
Going through all of the Iranian attacks on us directly and indirectly.
Absolutely.
Over the last 30 years.
Right.
And it's like people tend to forget.
Barracks, Khobar Towers.
Yeah.
The list
Stark.
goes on.
And I had a friend on Facebook that I saw post and say something about to the effect of, Trump bombed Iran and didn't even move our 40,000 troops out of the area first. And I wasn't going to get in an argument on social media because that's never productive. But I just want to say
it is
only with you, Paul. I wanted to say is, do you not understand that the vast majority of the reason why those 40,000 troops are there is Iran?
Yes.
And you don't, it's like saying, well, we got to fight that wildfire. Let's get the firefighters out of there before we do it. Like the whole reason, every military member in the Middle East 2 weeks ago, before the bombing, was receiving hostile fire imminent danger pay.
Yeah.
Because they're in imminent danger of coming under hostile fire.
We have a guest, by the way. We have a man that was on this show. Okay. He's one of Outlaw Radio Network's former guests.
Yeah.
That is currently active duty army in Israel.
Really? Can you get him on?
Yeah.
Satellite feed.
Yeah, I mean they have internet over there.
No. He's United States military. He's been in Israel for about 2.5 weeks. If I need to go further down that road of conversation, it needs to be in a private setting.
Can we call him?
No.
What's his name? Where's he out? What's his location?
What's street?
Fucking Democrats, man.
Remember that Saturday Live skit during the first Iraq War? Baghdad News. What did you say is your most vulnerable location, and how can we exploit it?
Yeah. The Americans are nowhere near the Baghdad International Airport. Boom. I wonder whatever happened to Baghdad, Bob. Anyway, you guys remember him, right?
Yeah.
That guy
Well,
was,
listen, here
that guy was hilarious.
Here's the other part of what you haven't acknowledged what I said too, though. The other thing that really scares me is that none of those nations have the infrastructure set up to defend them if they had them. So not only would you have, Qatar and Jordan and Lebanon and all these other third world, middle of the East nations getting hold of nukes, but then they couldn't even protect them. And then they would literally be floating around the world for the next slap happy group of extremists of whatever belief to get a hold of it.
The Clancy novels. Right?
Well,
I'm not afraid of the man who wants 10 nuclear weapons. I'm afraid of the man who only wants one.
Yep.
But Kevin, I can tell it clearly bothered you that I didn't bring up what you said. So
yes, acknowledge me.
Let me bring it up in this manner. a country like Iran isn't going to go to the effort that they've gone to get a nuclear weapon just to allow it to be stolen. They're going to guard it like their sister's virginity. Okay.
These are Muslim nations.
Yeah, and they
their
kill
sister's
people.
virginity.
They kill people. Like
They're more concerned about their goat's virginity. Come on.
So racist of you. Poor goats.
Means no.
I get what you're saying, and I don't really mean to be negative about it. I just don't necessarily think that that's the case. I just think that they've gone to too much effort. They've been humiliated too much. They've lost too much in order to propagate their nuclear program. Iran would not leave it undefended. Although, who's to say that they'd even have it very long, right? Like if I'm Israel, I'm not worried about Iran sending a nuke, through the skies towards my country. I'm not. Because Iran has not had the opportunity or the time or the wherewithal to develop a delivery system. That's not the problem. If I was them, my biggest worry would be a dirty nuke, because that's much easier to smuggle in the components and blow it up in Haifa. All right. And, a month later, you got people dying of radiation poisoning. It's going to be much more effective. So, and listen, I am of the opinion, have you guys noticed that in the last week, there have been two 4.8 to 5.1 megaton, or not megaton, I'm sorry, 4.8 and a 5.1 earthquake.
Right.
A nuclear device is right around a 5.0. Okay. Now, I'm not saying I think they were testing a nuke, but I'm saying they might have been testing a nuke.
I don't think they'd have it long either, because I don't think they'd sit on it.
Right.
Because they'd be too afraid of Israel or us blowing it up.
No, I think that they would want to use it.
They'd use it.
I believe so.
And Paul, in respect to what you said, I think they would guard it too. But I always feel like the Iranian government, like most of the government in the Middle East, is always about 3 days away from the verge of collapse.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you.
And
on that.
when it collapses, then who takes control of the nukes? And that's when my fear about security and protection come into play.
Which is what we saw during the fall of the Soviet Union.
I was just going to bring that up. I was going to say, at the end of the Cold War, when
the
USSR came apart.
Yeah. My last class that I took was NBC. I transitioned to the NBC unit because we were supposed to have a rapid response team. Thank you, Governor Locke, you fucking asshole. He didn't fund it. They wanted each state to have its own NBC rapid response team. Put it all together. We took the classes, went to school, did all the stuff, and then he was like, I guess we don't have the money. Something you probably should have thought about before you sent us all to training. But anyway.
So Lilat asked in chat.
Sure.
I'm just going to read this. Lilat says, Iran has Jews, Paul. They aren't against Jews. They're against Zionists. They are against what's happening in Israel to that population. Israel is the only country that is offensively attacking its neighbors at every turn. I don't know what news Lilat's
the level
watching.
of arrogance mixed with ignorance in that statement is, confusing to me. Listen, you can bury your head in the sand. You can choose to not learn anything about world history. You can choose to turn on MSNBC and only MSNBC or enjoy Gawker. Like, that's your choice, right? The rest of us that are trying to have adult conversations about this stuff are having reasonable adult conversations about this stuff. You're welcome to see your way out of that conversation. You either be productive or don't, but that's just dumb. Again, saying the Israelis and the Jews don't have the right to exist. I don't know. Anybody want to challenge that? Anybody think that's not what's been
But can you
said?
take it one step further than that too, Paul?
No, I'm sitting
Not
down.
only do they say they don't have the right to exist, but Iran funds Hamas. Iran funds Hezbollah.
Yeah.
And they are constantly attacking Israel by proxy.
Yeah.
It was Hamas that came across the border on October 7th and did what they did to civilians. And by the way, I would think the leftists would be upset and angered.
Well, that's why
over what happened,
Kevin, that
to
is
innocent women and children.
That
And
is
yet-
why I talk about how incredibly stupid and uneducated they are. Because clearly Lilat has no clue that if he chose to go to one of these countries, he would be tossed off a fucking roof.
Well, that's
Yet
true. Yeah.
he is
Iran would
more
not
than
tolerate,
happy.
yeah.
Lilat is more than happy to sit here and blast the Jewish people living in Israel for defending themselves against some of the worst, most unimaginable evil people on planet Earth.
The IDF just got back 3 bodies this weekend.
Right.
One of them was a 71-year-old woman.
Yeah.
I
She was
think
the
that-
one who was scared. They put her in like a golf cart or something. She was alive.
I think there's still 52 unaccounted for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't think they'll ever find many of them, right? I think they're probably buried in tunnels.
Yeah.
And Lila said, I'm going to respond to this one for you, Paul. Lila said, I read books about the history of Palestine. You haven't, Paul. I say read a book, and I'm insulting to the program. You say I need to read.
You're not insulting
and you feel
to the
that's
program.
okay.
You're insulting to me. I
think
your stupidity just, I don't even really want to respond. And here's the thing. Like I was
we just lost the casting couch camera.
Uh-oh.
So go ahead, keep talking, Paul.
I was happy to give, I always concern myself with wanting to have reasonable conversations, right? But then when you see conversations that go on behind your back and stuff like that, at that point, when you read some of those conversations where it's about belittling, us and the show that we do. Listen, this is an opinion show. If you don't like it, you're totally okay to not watch or listen. If your goal is to come on simply to, be injurious in your comments, then fuck off.
Injurious?
Yeah, cause injury.
Okay, is that what it means?
It's a legal term.
No, it's okay. That's why I didn't understand it. I'm not a lawyer like you.
No, I'm not a lawyer either, but I play one on the radio. I just, like I said, man, I could sit down and have a perfectly pleasant conversation with anybody, no matter how much I disagree with you. But when you're, effectively your stated pastime is to go talk shit about a people who put a lot of time and effort into this show and have for many, many years. Then no, I mean,
Rick, I'm about to turn that camera back on, so put your pants back on, please. Thank you. All right. Thank you. All right.
Sorry, Kelly. Sorry.
There we go.
Yeah.
Oh, hold on. I gotta get this one. There you go. Go ahead. Okay.
To your millions.
And millions
of viewers.
I detest you for that. I hate it when they do that, Rick.
I know, and you're
Lila said the comment. I've never disagreed with something Lila has said more. Lila said, and I quote, this is a quote, "Fuck you, Paul. No, I wouldn't. Transgender people are accepted in Iran and other places. That's how ignorant you are, Paul. You don't fucking know."
Okay. All right. Well,
I don't believe anybody transgender is in a fundamentalistic Islamic republic like Iran, where women
keep reading that book, Lilat.
Well, hold on. Let's pretend that you're absolutely right, Lilat. Let's just pretend you're right, that LGBTQ folks over there are openly accepted. How do you feel about the treatment of women over there? How do you feel about the fact that women are put to death when they're raped
or not wearing the right clothing?
Yeah. How do you feel about the women that the teenage girl that was not wearing her hijab correctly went into police custody and was never seen alive again?
You mean the one that we talked to on this program about 12 years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the fact that women have to be covered from head to toe because the men can't be possibly held responsible for not sexually wanting to do things to them? Like,
there's some gang rape clubs over in England that would probably love to spend some time with you, Lilat.
But I'm just asking, right? Like, I'm not trying to be argumentative or mean to Lilat, but I don't understand how anybody in this
Fuck
country
off. The shit that Lilat posts on other pages specifically about you.
Oh, you say whatever he wants to about me.
That's not what I'm saying. Well, you said it right. I'm not going to play into the delusional.
She. Is it he or she? Now I'm fucking confused.
It's she.
Is it she? God damn it! I thought I was right again. I'm second guessing every time I use a pronoun. Now I'm all confused. I don't remember.
Wait, Lilat's a girl?
Lilat's a she.
There's no fucking way.
Lilat's a she.
There's no way.
Lilat's a she. You be nice. Respect
I thought I was being nice.
Respect their
I
gender.
said there's no fucking way.
Respect their gender.
I don't believe anymore in. I no longer will play into the attempt to make a socially normal thing like mental illness. I don't need to
listen. Lilat is an adult and can make whatever decisions about how they want to be referred to, what they want to identify.
Absolutely. I called her Lilat.
Like, what is?
Did I not?
What is
did I not call her Lilat?
What is Tom's full name?
What?
Black Tom.
Tom, what's your full name? Your full first name. Your full first name.
Thomas.
Thank you, but we don't call you Thomas.
No, he has to be called Tom.
We call you Tom because that's how you like to be identified. Nobody has an issue with that.
Well, I called Lilat.
Rick,
Lilat.
what's your full name?
Richard.
Richard, but we call him Rick because that's what he likes to be identified as. We could call him Dick. It'd be fine too. Lori, what's your full first name?
I declined the answer.
Thank you. But we call you Lori because that's
Correct.
what you want to be. So I don't have an issue with anybody who is an adult that says, I am a he, but I want to be physically, I was born as a he, but I want to be referred to as a she. I don't have an issue with that. More
But that's
power to
you.
them.
I was talking about me.
I know, but
Okay,
you're
then-
wrong.
Well, that's your opinion.
What's your full first name?
What do you mean? What's
your full legal first name?
It's 4 fucking letters. It's
Yeah,
Paul. What the
That's
hell?
what we call you because that's
Yeah,
what you want to be called,
yeah.
Paul. Go
So
ahead.
anyway, like I said, I choose to not play into that delusion. I got a kid that goes to class, and he has a girl in his class that fucking dresses like a cat.
Well,
and he's like, Dad, this is not okay. No, son, it isn't. And you know what? When you got teachers in schools playing it off like it is okay, and your 9-year-old is
did they
going,
put a litter box in the classroom?
yes.
Oh my God.
What?
Yeah, she doesn't use it for anything. They just put it in there. Listen, this is not okay.
No.
It's not. And I'm not going to pretend like, well, you turned 18, suddenly you don't have mental illness. You still have it. That is my opinion. I am fully entitled to it, and I'm going to preach it because it's what I think. Welcome to my world.
Lila, if you'd like to go to Iran, I have a large sum of money coming my way whenever the federal government gets around to doing what they're supposed to do with the probate. And what I'm willing to do for you, Lila, is I will
you're an
gladly
asshole.
pay for your ticket and a 5-day, 4-night stay at the Tehran Marriott.
No.
Or whatever they have. I will gladly pay for you to do that under the condition.
You check in every day?
Under the condition that once a day, you do an interview with me on outlawradionetwork.com and through the Facebook page and all that stuff, where we check in and you give us your impression of how you've been received in Iran.
If
If
would
you're
prove
that
me
confident,
wrong, that's for sure.
no, and I'm going to have like $110,000 coming from the government, so I can easily take $4,000 or $5,000 and send you on a trip to better the show and to get to the bottom of this discussion once and for all.
God, what an investment.
So if you, I will foot the bill. I will give you a small amount of money for food once you get there. I'll Venmo it to you. I'm not going to give it to you beforehand because you might spend all that money drinking at the airport and change your mind. But I will gladly send you over, and you go there and spend 5 days, 4 glorious nights at the Tehran Hilton, and check in every day for a 30-minute interview on our website via Zoom or whatever, or StreamYard or whatever.
I think if Lila took you up on that, I would have to bow.
Sure, I'll do it. Lila said that.
I would have to bow.
Okay, Lila,
because
you
that
have to
would
get
be-
your passport if you don't have it already.
That would be one hell of a length to
No,
go
I'll do
to.
it. I'll do it.
I believe you.
I'll do it because I'm about to have a bunch of disposable income, and flushing $5,000 down the toilet, sending Lila to Iran to get to the bottom of this conversation sounds like a good investment of money for me. I'll still get my pool table. That's what matters.
Still too expensive for life.
I mean, we could spend that money on internet marketing and probably turn out. But if the show goes really, well, I mean,
the show will go viral.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna
At
say.
the
So
expense of Lila.
Lila wants to go there. Lila thinks that they'd be totally safe to go there. Who am I to tell them that they can't? How dare you oppress the trans community, Lori?
Kevin would be like,
Lila
I'm-
wants to go to Iran.
He'd be
Don't
like,
be
I'm the
telling them-
ultimate trans supporter.
Don't
Look
be
at what
telling
I
them
did.
what they can or can't do. How dare you, white
I'm
guilt?
not.
Kevin,
What?
Kevin,
Person.
what do you plan on doing with the other 4 days at the stay?
Well, I would have already paid for it.
What do you plan on doing with them?
You could spend some time at the International Tehran Glass
No,
parking lot.
What I'm hoping that they'll do is they'll go out and they'll mingle and they'll meet people and they'll check out the sites. There's a lot of
On day one,
there's a lot of
I want to know what you're going to do for an interview on day 2. There won't be anyone to interview.
Damn. Are you saying that they would toss her off a building before day 2? Is that what you're saying?
Five
Talk.
days.
Brutal. What do you think, Rick? You think she'd make it to
I
day 2?
think, Lila, you should not. To prove your point, you should not take him up on his offer.
Correct.
Just,
I agree.
just to prove the point, because your
not
safety
worth your life.
is not worth it.
Yeah,
it's
not
And
worth
there
your
have
life.
been
Your life
other
is worth
people.
so much more.
There have been other people who have done
It's been
similar trips
and not
to
come
prove
home.
points and not come home.
Like
It's
the
not worth it.
girl from Evergreen College just stand in front of that big old bulldozer. Yeah, didn't work out so
It's
well.
not. It's even if there's 1% chance you wouldn't come back, it's not worth it.
No.
Listen, Lila
I've
is
been to that
confident.
part of the world. It's not worth it.
Lila is confident.
Amen. It is not worth it.
It's not worth your life.
And I'm the one saying the shit that you ain't liking, and I'm telling you it ain't worth it.
Margie asked, can anyone say they have Facebook connects with an Iranian? We did.
We did.
We did have one
during the uprising in Iran. I think
spring Persian Spring.
Was it 22? No, it wasn't the
Arab
Persian
Spring?
It wasn't.
No,
Arab
not-
Spring.
No, because that started up in Libya and in
Spring.
that area, and it kind of worked its way. This was well before that.
I said this
college
would have been
students
before my time.
Yeah, college students were attempting to and it all started with clothing and the clothing police there in Iran. And we had the girl on for about 15 minutes. She went on to become world famous, and then they promptly killed her. Oh man, it makes me feel like crap because I can't remember her name, but I'll look it up. Yeah, she became world famous because of her death. She became a martyr for women's rights in Iran, and now they have less rights than they did when they killed her. It's no joke, man. I don't, it's not like I'm offended by Lilac coming on saying, Paul, you're just wrong, crack a book. I've been close enough to Iran to know that it's not. No.
Tehran, Kabul, a lot those cities were
they were way ahead, man, in the 70s.
Westernized,
Very.
very liberal.
Yep.
And
wonderful colleges.
And they got taken over,
Yes.
and women have not had rights since in those
Correct.
places.
1000% right.
But hey, you're on the left and you're all about minorities and women and all of that. Like, you turn a blind eye to it, knock yourselves out.
My time in Afghanistan, I learned I used to, people would say every culture should be celebrated. Every culture should, has good things to it. My time in Afghanistan made me learn that at least not every aspect of every culture should be celebrated.
And by the way, I don't think they allow
Amen.
abortions in Iran either.
Yeah.
Well,
But let's ignore that. Let's ignore.
How about the United States naval personnel that decided when they found out that a group of elders in an Afghan village were gang raping a couple of teenage boys, and so let's just say they put an end to it. And now they're still actually Trump pardoned 2 of them, but they went to Leavenworth for years because the United States military prosecuted them because they got involved with what was considered local tradition.
Yeah.
So gang raping little boys, and
were
like
not,
Rick said,
you were not to violate
Yes.
cultural norms.
Yeah. And so that is I think that's like exactly the verbiage too, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh, I did. Yeah. I went through Army training before I
I
went there.
just think the glorification of a regime like Iran, like I'm not personally, I think that entire culture is far worse off than ours. But let's pretend that in some world they even out. Our morals and our values as a nation and their morals and their values as a nation. Let's pretend that they even out. Given what we know, I cannot fathom how anybody on the left would blindly support Iran.
Ignorance.
No, it's not even ignorance because they know.
I
they
do. I
see
think
it on the
is-
news.
I think it is.
It's worse than
it's-
ignorance.
We can say willful ignorance.
It's like being a Mariners fan at this point.
It's
they're never going to go to the
Hold on.
playoffs.
Hey, they're coming
They're
back,
going to suck
man.
every
They're
single
coming
year.
back.
They're going to get your hopes up and rip them out. You're going to spend all the money on jerseys and tickets and beer and parking. You're going to be
that's
disappointed.
expensive.
And then next year you're going to be like, but this is our year. Soto Mojo. It's like the Iranians. Soto Iranian, whatever.
Listen, just as long as can I just point out that what years were you in the Navy, Rick? Were you in an 89?
The very end of 94.
Okay.
And I retired in 2015.
Okay, so you
Well, you
weren't
got
in
out
during
right
our
after
proportional response to the Iranian issues in 89 under Reagan, which was a couple years. I got in. I
was
enlisted
graduating
in
high school
90.
then.
Huh?
I was graduating high school then, but I didn't go straight in the Navy.
Why not?
Shit, you're younger than I am.
What year did you graduate?
89.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, okay. All right.
Me and Rick are the same age, but he looks so much younger than me.
You get those glasses?
Huh?
Anyway.
They're bifocals. That's what
I gave Rick a compliment, and you're basically telling me that he looks older than me, which is not
No,
nice.
I didn't say that
Be
about
nice
either
to the
one of
guests,
you.
I'm
Paul.
telling you that I look older than you.
No, I was. Listen,
Paul,
if
you're
you
a
take your
jackass.
hat off, the only difference is you don't have a glow.
You're a jackass. Hey, can I read you guys the funniest story of the day?
Yeah.
I shouldn't laugh at this.
But you're going to.
Let me get through the whole thing first.
Yeah.
A man opened fire on a Sunday service in Michigan. A
Yeah,
church-
that'll cause a laugh.
Listen. A church deacon and security guard stepped in to stop him. On the morning of June 22nd today, there was an active shooter at Crosspoint Community Church in Wayne, a Detroit suburb. A church security guard shot and killed the attacker before police officers arrived. The security guard had time to take aim at the shooter, whom police identified as a 31-year-old white male, because a deacon ran him over. The attacker was run over by one of our members who saw this happening when he was coming into church. So the dude's in the parking lot. Deacon. The dude's in the parking lot, opens fire. The deacon sees it, just runs his ass over, and then the security guard shoots him and finishes off for good luck, for good purpose. That's hilarious. That's why some people should not have guns.
Or should.
I don't advocate for background checks necessarily. I really don't. I think a background check is a violation of the Second Amendment.
Thank you.
I really do. However, we might need to put in a idiot test.
That's very Old Testament right there.
Right. Can we?
Do you support background checks? I mean, you're a Second Amendment constitutional kind of guy, Republican, conservative. Do you support background checks?
I think limited background checks make sense.
You're such a liberal,
but
no,
not to the degree that they've been taken.
A lot of gun owners like Rick, like myself, we don't sit here and preach about how we should not have any background checks. I don't want Lila to have a gun. Lila has mental health issues. I don't want people with significant mental health issues having guns. Okay,
listen,
I don't, because it's those people that almost every single mass shooter we've seen. It's
Then
somebody
who-
on meds with mental health
becomes
issues.
the decider?
And if you've had
Well, that's part of the
violent
question.
felony in your
That
background,
is part of the question.
If you've had a violent felony in your background, or even if you haven't been convicted of, I mean, you guys have talked plenty of times.
Yep.
You know, someone gets a restraining order against an ex.
Yep.
You know, disgruntled boyfriend, all that, you know, and then we go through this process, and by the time we go through the whole background check, they're dead because they couldn't get a weapon in time.
Irrelevant,
I mean,
irrelevant.
There's some of it's necessary, but a lot of what's been put in place is too long.
Irrelevant. We cannot take weapons away from people that have not been convicted of a crime. How many times have we heard people make accusations against people and later we found out it wasn't true?
Ladies and gentlemen, St. Paul has made Kevin the Democrat defend gun ownership.
So the idea that we can take weapons away from people without even a conviction is in and of itself incorrect. Secondly, the fact that we can take weapons away from people that are convicted of a crime that have served their time and done their time and paid off their sentence and done all of that. Again, under the Constitution, their rights should be restored because they did what they're supposed to do.
Agreed,
but
but
they
I don't
still
want
can't own a gun.
I don't want somebody who's currently on mental health medication
Again,
and who is bipolar. No, because that's a person that's unstable.
But here's the problem. 20 years ago, we didn't recognize bipolar. We didn't recognize. No, hold on, let me finish.
Yeah, we did.
No, we did not as a mental health issue. We didn't restrict them from having weapons because of it. We didn't,
We don't restrict them now.
We do in some cases. If a mental health judge comes in and says this person's out of his wacko mind gourd with bipolar depression, they can take the gun
Probably a
from them.
reason for it.
But here's the problem. What are we going to acknowledge in 20 years as a mental health issue that makes it so you can't have a gun? Paul, are they going to
gender
say,
dysphoria?
Paul, let's pretend you've had a DUI.
Okay. Why are we
At some point,
I did. I
wasn't going to
actively
say that.
acknowledge it.
I was going to let you. I was going to let you do that. Are they going to come out in 20 years and say, "Well, Paul's had a DUI, which proves he doesn't make intelligent decisions when he drinks, so now he can't have a gun."
Well, except-
Like that's where they're going to go. They're going to continue to go with it. The Constitution says, point blank, you cannot restrict somebody's ability to own a firearm.
That's
So
the
all of
Constitution
this
doesn't
other-
say that anywhere.
Hold on.
It says shall not be infringed.
Shall not be infringed, right? Which means you can't control somebody's right to have a firearm.
But that's part of the debate in this country
But
right
that debate's flawed.
it's
The
still the debate.
Constitution's black and white.
I don't disagree with you, Kevin.
You're almost
but
getting us
nonetheless,
hot about the cougar stuff.
yeah. Nonetheless,
Fuck you
it
and the
is
Cougars,
still
man.
the debate in this country
But
right
it shouldn't
now.
be. If you want to
saying
change
it shouldn't be doesn't.
If you want to change that, then you make an amendment to the Constitution.
Isn't deregulation grand?
Shut up, Goldilocks.
Again,
Dang.
look, the fact of the matter is this.
I waited all day to say Goldilocks to you.
The
too.
Washington State
buddy.
Constitution is even more clear than the U.S.
It is,
Constitution.
which means the U.S. Constitution could be more clear if they wanted to make it so.
It wouldn't matter. You'd still have
I
people
don't
arguing
disagree. It
about
wouldn't matter. I know.
But no, there should be no restrictions on gun ownership in this country.
Rick, to his point,
Now,
as a
I
guy-
would
hold on,
argue.
let me ask
if-
Rick. I want to know what he thinks about because you're making a good
let,
point.
Let me give one caveat to that.
Okay.
If they are convicted of a crime and they have served their time, but they are still in like a community supervision / parole / they still owe fine. So they haven't completely cleared up their legal obligations. I would agree with that. But once those are resolved in this country and you've paid your debt to society, your rights are restored.
I don't have any issue with the paid the debt to society thing, but it's not what I was getting at.
I'm just,
for example, if a woman comes in to see a judge and she says, my ex, beat me up, he kept me prisoner in a closet for a week, blah 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 blah. I'm here at the courthouse today because he has guns. I want to get a restraining order. Well, guess what? He's got guns, so if he wants to hurt me, he can, right? You don't think that she doesn't have the right to ask the court to go in and take his guns, right? Yeah. We have that process in place for a reason, because people do become mentally and emotionally unstable, and it's not permanent. It's a lot of times it's temporary.
Yeah. And I'm glad that a gun is the only way that somebody would kill their significant other.
No, but you can.
I mean, they couldn't use a knife. They couldn't run over a
chance.
gunman in the parking lot with their car.
You can reduce the odds of somebody hurting somebody else if you take away tools that they could use to hurt that person.
Okay. And so what if that person's a cop?
What if they're a cop?
Well, no, they can't be a cop because they're not allowed to have access to a gun. They can't do their job.
Right.
Do you not think a woman could lie? Not that I'm saying that most of them would. I don't think most would. But do you think one of them would lie to get it back at their ex who's a cop and take the gun away? And now he loses his job. He's out of work.
I do not know why Kevin believes that all women lie.
No, I didn't say all women lie.
I've never seen a woman lie. I don't believe women lie.
You have to show proof to get a restraining order.
What kind of proof do you have to show? I'm afraid of him. Oh, take his gun.
Well,
no, you
that's
don't.
a
You have to
state-by-state
show.
thing, though. That not necessarily.
In Washington State, you have to show photographic or physical evidence to get a restraining order if you're basing it on the fact that you've been threatened or someone in your family has been threatened or harmed.
Yeah, that's just maybe Washington. So when I was in Maryland, one of my sailors got presented with a protective order, and then it was an automatic. It was he's a danger. It was automatic. Then had to go to court 30 or 60 days later to follow up.
Right.
So I go to court with my sailor, and the person before him, her ex came into her place of work, dumped gasoline on her, and lit her on fire.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, well, that was the case before him.
But then he should be in jail and not released.
That was an
Right.
example.
I'm
Case
saying
before.
that was
Right.
the yeah.
Mhm.
When the other side of his case presented why they needed a protective order, it was the ex-girlfriend's parents who filed it, not her. And the reason was he called her after they asked him not to anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the reason behind the order.
And
it
that's
was an
why
automatic for the 30 or 60 days and then the follow-up. And the judge looked at them, and I'm smacking my sailor the whole time saying, shut up, shut up, say nothing.
Yeah.
And the judge asked, and said, young lady, did he ever hit you? No. Punch you? No. Kick you? No. Stab you? No. And went through a litany of, and it said, case dismissed, get out of my court. Because again, it doesn't take just a gun.
Yeah.
But it was, but in that case in Maryland, it was automatic. If someone, all they had to do was say, feel threatened, and it was in place.
Yep.
And then you had to go to court and follow up to extend it or get it taken down. But
here's what I'd like. Allow a restraining order to go into effect and make the punishment for violating a restraining order massive. You violate a restraining order, mandatory 5 years in prison.
Well, and falsely filing should also be.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Held
but it's a
as
lot
well.
harder. But I'm not a huge fan of like charging people for making false claims, because the same thing applies. They could make a claim that somebody could think is false, even though it's not, and then they get caught in it. And there's a lot of victims that might say, I'm not going to report a claim because if they think I'm lying, I could go to prison. We're going to make victims out of victims sometimes, and I don't want to take that risk.
Yeah, but you just said, the ex reporting the cops so they lose their job. It's though if someone does that, just
civil. I think civil. I think
they
civil
should
probably.
they should be held accountable.
But again, what do you do, right? I mean, you cost somebody their job, you cost somebody their livelihood. They come back in 30, 60 days later. Like in your situation, when it was a cop, he's now been suspended from the force. He doesn't have income coming in. He's hosed. His reputation is
He would
tarnished.
still get paid.
But I'm just saying his reputation is tarnished.
Yeah.
Nobody trusts him. People thinks he's an abuser. He goes into court. Court dismisses it, but it's not going to change the perception of him.
What you
he's
just
probably going to
said-
become an alcoholic, and he's going to be way more dangerous now because they boxed him into a corner.
But what you just said is why so many people use the phrase,
Hold
the
on, baby. Hold
accusation
on.
can be worse than the crime, right?
Mhm.
Because it'll destroy somebody's life, which is why people that make false accusations should absolutely be held accountable. It's
End of
as a
the day,
society, that's where we fall short.
End of
I
the
believe.
day, this is not a black and white argument. It's
Right.
incredibly
Don't make it
nuanced.
racial, Rick. God.
You said black and white. I was going to say
I'm Native American.
The
I can talk about
Constitution
this
is more
stuff.
brown and beige.
Could have been
If you look at it
slightly
now,
red.
but
Brown. God.
it's brown ink.
Just
You
go
can
with
look
gray.
at it.
It's a gray
Boss
area.
Baby is in the chat. She's actually turned her camera on.
How
so
does
I
that
think she
song
has-
go? What the,
No, I
you
think
know,
the whole thing is much more nuanced, especially has been. So yeah, you're right. The Constitution says one thing, and I am a constitutionalist. I think we should stick to the letter.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's only a short document. It does not
it's only
cover
a paragraph.
It does not cover every situation, and that's where all the laws are coming
I'm a
after.
big Second Amendment
Yeah.
guy, but I'm right there with you. I think reasonable, rational gun owners can fairly easily agree on who we think should be able to and who we should. It's a big list of who should be able to, and a very small list of who shouldn't be able to own a gun.
Well, and listen, and
but Lori
Jim-
was right too, because then who's the arbiter?
Mhm.
And maybe that's where the discussion has to start. Who's going to be the arbiter? We figure that out first and kind of go from there.
Well,
Oh,
we
but
already
it's- hold
have
on.
that.
Well,
We
hold on.
already have an arbiter, though. I mean, there is a legal system.
a
So
flawed legal system.
A clogged legal
a
system.
clogged, flawed legal system. Yes, but
man's legal system.
there's still an
I
arbiter
figured
there.
I'd
though.
say before Lila.
Yeah,
did.
why not?
So listen,
Um,
Jim Loescher said in chat, hello, Jim. Good to see you. Haven't talked to you in a long time. Thanks for abandoning the show, you
Damn.
schmuck.
I look.
Um, Jim said charges for the threat, yes. Removal of firearms, no. That's the point. If they've made threats, if they physically abuse them, if they've assaulted them, accosted them, whatever, then make those charges stick. Make those punishments valid. Though that's the reason why they should be in jail. We shouldn't be. Guy beats up his girlfriend and then gets released on personal recognizance the next day after he beat the shit out of her. How does that? And then we're having a discussion about taking away his gun rights. The dude shouldn't even be out of jail. He beat the crap out of a woman.
That's where I was going.
Yeah.
It's don't
Hold on, boss baby.
don't question someone's legality to own a firearm. Just question their accountability. I mean, if they
Yeah.
own if they own a machine
Perfectly
gun
rational.
and it's locked up in their gun safe and they play with it every 4th of July, fine. What harm is that, right? I mean, you go out and go shooting on 4th of July, fine. And if you're out and behaving like an asshole with it, then be held accountable.
Yeah, and I will remind you that OJ didn't shoot his wife; he stabbed
Well,
her.
and like you said, the system is not. It's flawed.
Mhm.
We have. So I have a friend that recently he got a second DUI. He had to go through the system, and in the same week that he was going through court, in which the prosecutor recommended 45 days, his attorney asked for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. The judge said, "I'm going to give you 364 days because essentially you didn't learn a lesson, and I'm going to make an example of you." That same week was the week the story broke of the individual who was convicted of child molestation, who was let out on 11 months and was working as a handyman, killed the woman he was working for, and put her body in the foundation of the shed he was pouring for her in the backyard.
Oh.
So 11 months he was let out. My friend for a second DUI was going to get 12 months.
Yeah.
As an example.
Yeah.
So, to make an example of don't fall off the wagon and make a mistake.
Isn't
Hold on,
that
Boss
a
Baby's
huge-
waiting to
That
make a
is
comment,
not
too.
a system that's working. Now he didn't end up. He appealed it. He got out much sooner. Whole other issues.
Yeah.
But how does that make sense? He didn't hurt anyone. He didn't. He didn't crash. He got pulled over.
Yeah.
Hurt
himself.
Hurt himself.
Victimless
tremendously.
crime.
Tremendously hurt himself.
Yeah.
For a lot of ways. But a child molester gets out at 11 months, and he was going to get 12.
Yeah. No,
that shows how our system in this state, especially, is
absolutely, man,
messed up.
And we'll get back to that because I know Boss Baby wants to talk, but we'll get back to this in a minute because
What up, Boss
we got some
Baby?
good stuff.
Hi, friends. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
dear, we can hear
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Nice to
Well,
see
just
you.
we didn't test it earlier. I was just going back to the restraining order, protective order, and how hard it actually is in this state. We had a death involved and couldn't get a restraining order or a protective order for the wife who was also threatened, of the husband who is now no longer with us, from the
God,
same
good
person.
Lord.
So, yeah,
What was the
just
reason
saying that was
that they wouldn't grant it?
because they didn't believe that there was enough threat, apparently, to the
One death
wife.
wasn't enough for them. Huh?
One death, yeah, one death that was egged on. I always forget the word.
Exonerated?
No.
Okay,
So
because that would have been
the
weird.
person they were trying to get the protective order against
Uh-huh.
caused the death of the person who's no longer. He encouraged. I sound like an idiot because I can't think of the word. He encouraged somebody to kill themselves.
Yeah.
And because of money, and they were going to extort money, because he was working on. That's literally how hard it is to get a freaking protective order or a restraining order in this state. And really, all it is a piece of paper. Because I can tell you, that person they couldn't get the restraining order against is a convicted felon and has been caught with a gun 5 times, and still nothing happens. So,
Yeah.
anyway, you guys were
Yeah,
just
you
going.
know.
No, it's a great
Also,
point.
Tegan said, "Oh,
cheers.
what's that? Liberal tears energy. Look at that, Tom. You need to sue
Snowflake.
them for copyright infringement."
Snowflake and sugar free.
Tegan posted in chat:
Damn.
change sentencing guidelines, fund jails, hold judges accountable, raise correctional officer salaries, increase training, and don't let inmates contact the victims from jail. Okay, perfect.
Well,
Yeah.
it's-
That's
I
a good
mean,
short
right?
list.
If it was that simple, I'm there. You know,
That's a good short list.
everything that she
Yeah.
just said. Yeah. And I will say this. The idea of holding judges accountable to me is a real paramount issue, because I feel like judges are not even remotely held accountable. If it's an elected judge, the problem is nobody remembers these cases after a month, let alone, a year or 2 years later, right? You don't see people running for judge saying this judge, sentenced these sexual offenders to this amount of time. Like, and that's the stuff that should be important to people.
You could have just ended it. You don't see people running for judge.
Well, we do here.
Not really. How many judges run unopposed?
Yeah. Well, okay, if that's what you mean, yeah, you're right. I agree with you. And sometimes there's some ridiculous stuff that goes on. I remember when Judge Bassett was first running and he acknowledged that he was openly gay. We sat down and interviewed him at the Kitsap County Fairgrounds. Absolutely loved the guy.
Yeah.
Totally was like, I will vote for you. It didn't matter that he was a Democrat to me. I loved his values. I loved the way he spoke to people. And then his opponent, whose name I won't mention on air, was a disgusting piece of dirt, because the first thing he said when we interviewed him is, well, he's gay. Well, I don't care. Like, why the fuck would you bring that up about a guy who's running for a judge?
Why does it matter? I don't remember if she was elected or not, and I couldn't have voted for her because she wasn't in the area. But the judge that came with Kevin when he talked to the Senate group, I'd have voted for her in a heartbeat. And I only heard her talk for 5 minutes.
You can tell, can't you? I mean, once you understand anything about
what came out of that? You know what came out of that thing we went to when we went to talk to the Senate group about? Nothing. Nobody followed up. Nobody called. So,
that judge, you could tell that judge.
Oh, you could tell they cared.
Belonged on the bench.
Yeah. What was her name?
So that's an important.
I didn't say it because I couldn't remember either.
Do you know her name?
I took a picture of the itinerary while we were there, but it'll take me too long to find it if I still have it.
Okay.
I just these are the conversations, right? These are good conversations. Judges run. That's the one thing I always tip my hat to my wife for. Like, she digs into judges before she votes for them. Like, she digs into their voting record. And my wife had always said she was a victim once. She was never going to be a victim again. And that really drove her personal process. And I know that every year when elections come around, she always hands me a sheet of paper about the judges, and it's just important. And the point about holding judges accountable, that's important. That's why when I heard that there were a couple of judges that got arrested because they were helping illegal immigrants escape, right? And they were helping people basically get away from ICE custody. Like, one of these guys was a convicted murderer and the judge helped him escape ICE. Like, Are you effing kidding me?
Mm-hmm.
Hell yeah, arrest her. Prosecute her. Throw the book at her. Because if the role was reversed, she'd be doing it to you. And I think far too often, judges are not held accountable. They do feel like they're, a general on a battlefield, like they can do whatever they want, and that they're almost untouchable. I think that is a major issue we have in this country with our justice system.
Yeah.
That's why we call them activist judges. We have them sitting on benches, and they're just, well, I think the law should be this, and they rule that way.
Yeah. Here's what scares me about the idea of holding judges accountable is who's doing the accountability check. Like, if we had a Republican conservative-esque judge in the state of Washington, who's going to be the one holding them accountable? Probably a Democrat. And then what is their idea of holding them accountable mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, I mean, I agree with you in theory, right?
Maybe that should be a panel then.
But again, who's going to pick the panel? The governor?
It's a difference between breaking the law, upholding judicial ethics. Like what do you mean by holding accountable? That judge in Pennsylvania that was prosecuted for like sending kids to a juvenile facility that shouldn't have been and shouldn't even have been going, let alone the sentences he was giving them, and then getting kickbacks from him and the prosecutor for sending them there. That was criminal. Absolutely should have been held accountable. That's not a matter of just violated the judicial canons or the ethics. I think when it's criminal, it's a whole different ballgame.
We should publish judges' records like a baseball team. Like Judge Smith, right, sentenced 33% of his sex offenders to over 5 years in prison, right? Like, start printing some baseball statistics about judges.
Well, what I liked about the judge that was there with Kevin is they were talking about children, being helped in the I don't get the acronym right, DCYS.
Yeah.
And the senators were like, well, if we have a system that's working, and she basically said, I'm here telling you it's not.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I'm like, right, there you go. You're trying to say, oh, well, we have, and she's like, no, I'm telling you it's not, as a sitting judge. And that's what they said. That's what I liked. It was like, there was no politics, no beating around the bush. She's like, yeah, I hear you, but you're wrong. And that was like, and that's not, that's not a matter of ethics. That's not a matter of law. That was a matter of character.
Yeah.
And that, so I might not agree with every ruling she makes, but she had character.
Well, and that's how I look at the Supreme Court. There's been plenty of decisions I've disagreed with, but I have faith in them to generally get stuff right in the long run, right? I mean, you've got a 9-person panel, right? They're not going to rule the way I want them to all the time. And I'm glad they don't rule the way I want them to all the time. That would mean that they are partial, right? Especially because you do have a conservative heavy court, but they don't rule the way conservatives want them to all the time. It's why, Coney Barrett's getting some pushback. Roberts gets a lot of pushback, right?
Yeah.
But that's the way they should be. And
I
it's
love
one of the
ACB.
things I appreciate about them. Did you say I love AOC?
I love ACB.
ACB,
Amy
Coney
Coney
Barrett?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
All right, let's take a bumper break. We gotta put a bumper in here. When we come back, we're gonna get to state level stuff.
We got to pay the bills. Oh,
we gotta
no,
we gotta talk to Rick about some state stuff. We'll find out what's going on up on the north end of the county. We'll find out why his friends at Paulsville for all have been so quiet. We'll ask him about his son man crush on Ace Haynes, and find out where they're going on vacation together next month. So stick around. It's Outlaw Radio Network. One more hour to go, unless we go late. We're back after this.
.com.
.com.
This is the Outlaw Radio Network.
Admin a la carte are specialized local experts committed to helping you run your small business. From general admin and sales support to marketing, digital media and technology to real estate and compliance, Admin a la carte's only goal is to take your business to the next level. Find out how Admin a la carte can elevate your business. Visit admin-alacarte.com for more information. That's admin-alacarte.com. Admin a la carte. Your business doesn't fit into a box. Why should you have to?
Are you ready to elevate your spirits? Look no further than Black Rain Spirits, your local craft distillery nestled in Town Square Mall. Indulge in the smooth richness of our handcrafted spirits, meticulously distilled to perfection. Whether you prefer the bold kick of our bourbon or the subtle sophistication of our gin, Black Rain Spirits has something for every palate. Visit us today at Town Square Mall and experience the essence of true craftsmanship. Black Rain Spirits, where passion meets perfection, unconventionally traditional. On a recent episode of the Outlaw Radio Network,
Some of our listeners even appreciated you dumbing it down for them. So, on behalf of
Sometimes
Paul,
I have to
thank you.
mansplain for people like. By the way, mansplaining is when men explain things to a woman in a condescending tone. I just mansplained.
That's the Outlaw Radio Network, Sunday nights at their new time from 6 to 10.
This is Spike Cohen. This is Jesse Young.
I'm Brandy Cruz, host of the Undivided Podcast.
And you're listening to
my friends on the
Outlaw
the
Outlaw Radio
Network.
This is Spike Cohen. This is Jesse Young.
I'm Brandy Cruz, host of the Undivided Podcast.
And you're
Are you ready to elevate your spirits? Look no further than Black Rain Spirits, your local craft distillery nestled in Town Square Mall. Indulge in the smooth richness of our handcrafted spirits, meticulously distilled to perfection. Whether you prefer the bold kick of our bourbon or the subtle sophistication of our gin, Black Rain Spirits has something for every palate. Visit us today at Town Square Mall and experience the essence of true craftsmanship. Black Rain Spirits, where passion meets perfection, unconventionally traditional.
Admin a la carte are specialized local experts committed to helping you run your small business. From general admin and sales support to marketing, digital media and technology to real estate and compliance. Admin a la carte's only goal is to take your business to the next level. Find out how Admin a la carte can elevate your business. Visit admin-a-la-carte.com for more information. That's admin-a-la-carte.com. Admin a la carte. Your business doesn't fit into a box. Why should you have to?
This is Spike Cohen. This is Jesse Young.
I'm Brandy Cruz, host of the Undivided Podcast.
And you're listening
to my friends on the
Outlaw the
Outlaw Radio
Network.
All right, Outlaw Radio. Again, a reminder on the Outlaw casting couch tonight.
It's a young
sponsored by-
Santa Claus.
Sponsored by the Kamala Harris campaign. It is Rick Eckert.
Does he
Council.
not? Does that picture not make him look like a youthful Santa Claus? It does. Acknowledge it, Kevin. Admit it.
I got to get the one that's not like right here. In the, I was
you
telling them earlier.
you can use your Navy tree.
The rosy cheeks and everything, and the little beard. So cute.
Yeah. We had a great conversation in the men's room about Ace Haynes. That's all I wanted to say.
A lot of different ways that could be taken.
Great conversation in the men's room about Ace Haynes. Rick, how are things going on the north end? So you were a city council member of the city of Paulsbo, formerly on the school board.
You want me to come up and pay you some attention up there in Paulsbo?
Formerly a CIA assassin. How are things going on the north end?
Oh, pretty good actually. We've I talked about some of the last stuff, but our the Nordic cottages, I know something we talked about before with that we're building the deeply affordable housing. It's almost done. So
You said deeply affordable?
yeah,
housing?
that's actually a technical term that they use. Deeply, it's
Can you explain that? Because there seems something not right about that phrase.
Folks who make 30% or less of the average median income in the county.
Okay.
So the term is deeply affordable. So
You mean cheaper?
No, like basically they're subsidized. So what is the
Okay.
folks that live there are going to be getting housing vouchers through Housing Kits App.
Like Section 8?
Kind of, except the
Okay.
city owns it. So
Okay.
That was the selling point of the project.
Wait a minute. The city owns it.
Yeah, well, city's building it and owns
And then the
it.
county's going to give a voucher.
We're gonna Housing Kits App's gonna manage it.
Okay.
And we got federal housing vouchers.
Okay.
So folks that live there will only pay a nominal rent based on their income, which I said these are the folks that make 30% or less of the average income of the county. So average income of the county is somewhere close to 60,000, I believe. So 30% of that. So these are folks making virtually nothing.
20,000.
Like less than $2,000 a month.
Yeah.
It's not much money.
And mostly focused to seniors. And so they'll pay a nominal amount, and then the voucher will take it up to market value. And then the city will get that, which will use to pay essentially the mortgage on the properties of building them. So it's very collaborative between county, federal, the city. They're almost done being built. We should be having a ribbon cutting for that real soon. And that's going to be pretty amazing because it's showing that we can do it. Like that was a big part of the project,
effort, right? That's
yeah. I mean,
yeah.
I know you guys are pretty familiar with Polsbo. I'm not sure what the rest of you, but if you know where the library is in Gateway Church, this was built on that gravel triangle that's right next crossing the library next to Gateway Church. That was just used as a place to store dumpsters. Like there was nothing going on there. And so that's the small, very difficult property that was turned into these housing. Had to move utilities to do it.
How many units are there?
So it's 8 units, 2 buildings for each, 2-story to take advantage of the property.
Okay.
Had to survey 3 times because the cemetery across the street had to make sure where the lines really were because it's like old Polsbo and they didn't really know where the property lines were. But it's a project to prove that it can be done.
Yeah.
And then we're going to look at other places potentially to build more of them as we go
I
forward.
love the fact not only that a project like that has come together, but that they are even focusing on seniors, because to me that's the great housing crisis.
Yep.
Because somebody may have retired, looking at their retirement, when they were working their way through the workforce in the 90s or whatever, and said, I'm going to make $2,500 a month. I should be good to go, with no idea of what the economy was going to do because nobody knows. And
there's a lot Trump.
Yeah. Anyway, it's just.
Yeah, and because the city owns them and they're not true Section 8, they won't flip. Most of those projects have a life cycle on them, and after 15 years or 20 years, whatever that is when they get set up, they flip over to market rate, and the owners don't have to offer them as low income anymore.
Right.
That's not gonna happen because the city owns it. So unless a future city council decides to sell it or get rid of it, but why would they? So
it's an investment and it's for the good of the community.
Yeah. And
are there requirements for folks to live there? Like, is there employment requirement, retirement requirement, drug test? Like, is there anything criminal background check, anything like that?
Housing Kitsap will kind of run the criteria like that, but it's really right now all we talked about is the income level have to be below that, and we look at seniors or those with disabilities. So that's the only real criteria we've looked at. We talked about, do we restrict it to people who already lived in Polsbo, and that's not really, we're not going to do that. That wasn't really appropriate since it's a Kitsap run and they're federal vouchers. But yeah, and there's only 8 units, unfortunately. That's been some of the criticism. What's 8 units going to do to the overall housing crisis?
It's going to make a difference in 8
lives.
It's
a start.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's going to make 8 people not be homeless. That's for sure.
Journey of 1,000 miles.
Yeah. So yeah, no, that's the only criteria we're looking at right now.
And does the city come out net zero in cost for this?
Basically,
because of the housing vouchers from the feds, does the city come out with like a zero net in the budget?
Basically, we were going to borrow, and we're using. And that's essentially, like I said, the mortgage the vouchers will pay for. But we also, so there's a 0.1% of 1% that goes to affordable housing that we collect. And so that's the money that's been used to front load the project. And so that got us along. And then we got some money. Representative Simmons got money out of the budget towards this project. So there's been grants and
so we have to tip our hat to her.
Yes, we wrote her a letter from the council. Thank you.
Is there a chance she might have to live in one of these apartments in the near future?
Nah, she'll be able to make money off her gambling.
No, but she'll be there for. I'm sure she'll be there for the ribbon cutting. I'm sure both. Greg Nance was there for the when we broke ground.
So those two just won't be talking.
And I'm sure Greg and Tara will be there when we cut the ribbon, because they've both been following this project all the way through.
Well, no, that's really good, and good for Greg on that. And
well, look, it's what municipalities like Paulsville have to do, right? I mean, you're not a large city. You don't have a huge tax base. You have to get creative in how you make things happen, but you still have to find a way to offer the necessary services to your constituents, right? And so a partnership with the feds and with the Kitsap housing and all of that to get this thing off the board, off the ground, and you end up with a zero net, right?
Yep,
I mean,
that's the goal.
That's flawless. Now, where the federal tax, is there any concern about the federal tax money drying up because of the Trump administration?
Because it is federal housing vouchers. You know, they could potentially, but they're all committed right now, so we don't think that'll change. But you know, you never know. I mean, any of these projects.
Kevin Nelson said the crew of Fox 13's Good Day Seattle are going to broadcast on Friday for the 9 o'clock hour from the Paulsville waterfront. Are you aware of that?
I know there's a couple that we're doing some interviews here coming up, but I'm not going to be around. I'll be out of town. So yeah, the mayor was getting interviewed for some stuff, and she asked if any of the council wanted to be a part, but I'll be out in the middle of the state on Friday, so I won't be around for that.
Well, I would just like to remind Ace Haynes, who listens to this show all the time, the crew at Fox 13's Good Day Seattle would love to hear from you. Please show up at 9 a.m. on Friday at the Paulsville Waterfront Park.
Ace does not live in Paulsville. He lives in Indianola.
I understand that, but I'm just saying
so.
he would love to go.
Yeah.
They would love to talk to him.
But we also we just finalized our comp plan.
He
which was
represents the best of
years of work in our planning department. Well, that was the last meeting. We finalized that. And one of the things in that was our community brought us was the 3 manufactured home parks. We authorized manufactured home overlays as part of the comp plan for those, which basically means that they will stay manufactured home parks through this plan, that they won't be developed as something else. So again, there's the other affordable housing in Paulsville. Those 3 communities represent a good chunk of what you would consider affordable housing. And those three parks are very different. They're each one is unique. I'll just put it that way. And their situation is different. And there's state initiatives that allow mobile home residents to buy out the park if the owner decides to sell it. The 3 of them all are in different places of what they could do with that. So by putting an overlay, it doesn't necessarily, there's fear when you do certain things with zoning on mobile home parks. It de-incentivizes the owners to maintain them. The overlay is kind of the halfway measure where we try not to do that because you still want them to maintain them, but it also keeps them from selling to a developer who's going to put in apartment buildings or $1 million homes and that.
We've seen that here locally in Kitsap County, right? With when you've got somebody comes in and buys a mobile home park, jack people's rent ups and stuff like that. I think people have a legitimate reason to be concerned about stuff like that. Those are a lot of those folks are my customers, having my specialty license in that, and I see it a lot. And it's unfortunate because those folks are almost always on a fixed income.
Yep.
Not always, but almost always.
Well, 2 of ours are senior living communities.
Yeah, the one I just did a job for a customer up there, fixed some skylights for him. She was at the one if you're heading into Suquamish, right on the left-hand side of the highway, like you're heading to Bainbridge Island, and
that's not going to that's outside of the city, but yeah. So the big
I'm not sure where the city limit. I thought basically the city ended right where the Suquamish.
No, actually, there's a kind of a county. There's a strip of
buffer?
county between. If the big new roundabout at Johnson,
yeah,
that's kind of the edge of the city.
Okay.
And what's interesting is on one side of the road is city and one side of the road is county. Even when you get up to that roundabout, the folks on the water side are not part of the city and have no desire to be. They resist annexation in the past.
Yeah, we've seen that in Silverdale a few times. Yeah.
But yeah, no, the city limits don't go all the way to Suquamish to the reservation.
Okay.
There is a gap. But no, the big ones. So we have 2 senior ones that are kind of in the middle of the one's in down sort of over by the library area. The other one is up as you head up Lincoln, and then the bigger one is up by the high school up that way too. And yeah, that was the one that had a lot. We actually the year before I came on council, there was some issues with that's when it was bought new, like you said, and rents were going up, and the new owners put in some requirements to fix up units essentially.
Gotcha.
Said, you have to maintain your units, and some of those things have been there quite a while. So the city partnered with a group called the Bluebills, which are a group of retired Boeing engineers who just do volunteer work, funded some money for materials, and they came out and they did work on those units. 4 folks fixing up ramps, stairs, walls, whatever they needed. Not in the city, but one there's a lady that they help over on Suquamish Reservation where they just go and chop wood for her once a week, and stack it up because her house is heated entirely by a wood stove.
Gotcha.
And she can't do that herself. So they're just a volunteer group of engineers. And so that's another thing the city's partnered with, trying to help the folks there. And then that's continued each year where we put some money from that same tax to the Blue Bills. They buy the materials, they supply the labor, and just for folks that could not afford to hire you and come in and do it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm outrageously expensive.
Really quick,
ask my boss.
I just got a message. We need to congratulate Lori on her new job. I don't know. You didn't tell us about this when you came in tonight, but Lori got a new job.
Is it a job or is it that group that
she's the senior director at Old McDonald's Farm. She is the CIEIO. Okay, go ahead, Tom. Go ahead, Rick.
I thought it was HR.
Oh,
Roundabout.
HR.com.
No, you're the CI. You're the CIEIO.
Future Payroll Research Advisory Board
There you
member. Yeah.
That was a whole lot of words. I was just
See, I pay attention.
Right.
Thank you, Rick. I appreciate that.
Well, he does that work up there with a whole bunch of people on the left. He has to learn how to filter that shit out. He's like, he picks up the important stuff and remembers it, commits it to memory. All right, Kevin.
What is the biggest challenge now facing Paulsbo? Is it still the housing? Is there something else that is
Paulsbo?
Is there? Yeah. Do you guys have a thing in your public schools teaching kids how to pronounce the name of the city?
No. And the schools are not city, but no, but there is the legend that it was actually Paulsbo, and then it was filed incorrectly. It was misspelled. It was actually the founder's son, Paul, and they misspelled it to Paulsbo, and then that just stayed.
Which might be the truth, man.
Yeah,
that's
the legend I heard. I didn't.
Is there any truth that it was named after Paul Madden, or Paul Madden was named after that?
Oh, son, I was born long after that city was named.
Now,
by the way, Nancy's still in chat. How you doing, Nancy? Go ahead. Sure.
Yeah, the housing's still difficult. So with this comp plan, one of the things we are able to do, and we have an outstanding planning department, is so you guys know about the GMA.
Mm-hmm.
With the Growth Management Act, they mandate certain numbers you're supposed to plan for. We are required to mandate over the next 20 years, or plan for the next 20 years. Somewhere in the vicinity, I don't remember the number off the top of my head, but it's 5,000 new residents in Paulsbo, several thousand new jobs, and just over 2,000 new homes. They were
in 20 years?
In over 20 years, planned for, not build, not authorized, just planned for.
Okay.
Within our existing UGA, without any expansions, without any annexation,
growth,
they were able to figure that out, work that out. We did a couple zoning changes, and we were able to move forward with that. We authorized some new heights in a couple parts of town, mostly the commercial areas. So if folks want to build where they have commercial on the ground floor, residential above, it's a little more attractive now to do that. But they were able to figure that out where, like I said, we didn't have to go out and look for, turning residential low into residential medium, or trying to annex places that weren't part of the city. They were able to figure all that out, that we can absorb that level of mandated growth within our existing boundaries through fill-in changes. One thing that they came up with, and to add to the code that was really interesting, is like authorizing duplexes on corner lots. So, instead of a house sitting in the middle of a corner lot and a big yard that's kind of going to waste, if you want, you can build a duplex there and take advantage of that, and changing some setbacks. So a lot of technical things, but it makes it easier for folks to build. Our planning director, Heather, was also the one that was behind the effort with all 4 cities in the county to come up with a set of accessory dwelling unit ADU plans that are now going to be available to throughout the county, that are pre-approved in all 5 jurisdictions, permit ready. So if you want to build an ADU and
you
you
just
don't
walk in and say, give me that plan.
I like that plan. And you can change trim, you can change some of the things about the roof, but as long as you stick to those plans, and there's like 12 different really sets. Some of them are 2-story. You know, it's a lot of choices. You can just take that off the shelf. And we're working on trying to find builders that would kind of be pre-approved.
Well, at least, I mean, that's a start, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I've just preached for years. I don't like private property owners being told what they can and cannot do with their own property. I'm not for that. I find it really hard, but at least this is a step in the right direction. I mean, you know, you'll be closer looking like scene out of the Stepford Wives, right? Like you go every time I don't know about you, Rick, but every time I drive through Port Ludlow, I'm just like freaky, weird sci-fi movie set. You know, I'm like, this houses just look too similar colors. It just
yeah, some builders do that. I don't love it, but I come from older neighborhoods where all the houses look different, you know. So,
yeah.
But you know, that's the thing, is we don't dictate. A lot of people think we do, that we think
you're the
we
city, Rick.
Tell the developers and the builders exactly what to do and how to build, and we don't. You know, we have.
He's like, I swear, I promise we don't.
Well, it's funny because one of our senior planners, we had this.
I mean, do you have to hire old people? Is there some rule for that?
No, it's seniority. Not age. We had this kind of intro when I got on city council, where they were talking to the new folks and kind of bringing us into land use and all that. And they were asking, like, what's your favorite building in Poulsbo?
Mm-hmm.
And one of our senior planners, it was the new tire store. And people were like, you like the new tire store? And it was because she was proud of what she got the builder to do on making the tire store look nice.
Yeah.
You know, and just wasn't required, wasn't mandated. It was just, hey, if you would just do this, this, and this, it's going to be a much nicer looking building and blend in with the neighborhood and, you know, that. And they were like, yeah, we can do all that. And it just turned out nice, you know. And that's the kind of thing. It's like, we don't tell people what to do, but we guide them to better decisions if we can.
As long as they think it's their idea, it's perfect.
Yeah.
You know what I think one of the worst things that happened to Paulsville was, though?
My wife.
Not your wife was not the worst thing that happened to Paulsville. Wow, Paul.
No, because she makes me think things are my idea. They're really not, you know?
Oh, now I got it.
Yeah. Like, you know what the worst thing was to happen to Paulsville? And Paul's like, my wife. I'm like, well, okay. No, I think the worst thing that happened to Paulsville was that huge housing development there behind front. Like the right, the one up. No, not Ohava.
You mean the ones with
the one
really
behind
small
Martha
yards?
and Mary? Yeah, the one behind Martha and Mary.
Oh,
I know what you mean.
Yeah, I just like I lived.
People call it the Skittles,
right? You can hear your neighbor flush their toilet.
Oh
Yeah, but I mean, I lived in Paulsbo, and I just felt like that didn't fit. Like Paulsbo feels like this kind of close-knit community, kind of small townish, even though it's not really, but it's kind of
small houses
downtown.
Small town.
But that housing development right in the middle of town just seemed out of place.
It was there when I got there, but I understand it actually used to be Army barracks, Army housing in that area that was all torn down and replaced.
It was.
Yeah. So it was.
It used to look like the old West Park.
Yeah.
If that helps you get a visual. In fact, there used to be a Pee Wee football field back there that when I was growing up, we had to go play Pee Wee football, and we hated the field because it was like you'd find pieces of glass in it. It was terrible.
Yeah,
and big rocks.
There used to be a golf course where Poulsville Village is. Like there's a depending on how long you go back, a lot of things have changed.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one thing people don't like, you were saying where the city ends. Poulsbo is less than 5 square miles.
It's small.
It is legitimately the densest city in Kitsap because we're less than 5 square miles with 13,000 people.
Yeah.
So when you do that math, we are by far denser than any of the other cities because they've got much more square footage.
Where the Walmart and stuff, is that outside the city limit?
That's the edge.
That's the edge.
That's basically the north and west edge.
Okay.
But it is in the city limits, the Walmart is? Okay. Was it before it was built? Or did you guys
I believe so, because I hear a lot of horror stories about what the council and the mayor went through when that was being proposed.
Oh,
that was the end of the city.
That was
there was so
Walmart
many
to come in.
So there was a U-Haul down there on Viking that had signs out in front about how it was just the end of Paulsbo.
Yeah, we
say no to Walmart.
It came up recently when we were talking about paid parking because somebody brought up, the last end of Paulsbo was allowing Walmart to come in. And now think what would have happened in 2008 during that recession if we didn't have Walmart and Home Depot, because the sales tax.
Speaking, I've been casing Home Depot.
The sales tax they brought in kept the city afloat essentially.
Yeah,
because Viking Way, all those auto dealerships closed.
Yeah,
half of Front Street was empty, and so the city would have probably would have been, in the red if it wasn't for the sales tax coming in from the 2 big box stores.
Yeah.
And now,
and the number of jobs they provide, and it clearly didn't kill off all your grocery stores. Central Market still does really well.
Yep.
The Safeway up there on the
which
hill
is relatively
does well.
new.
And
Yeah.
Central Market's overpriced to boot, right? So people are willing to shop there. It's a destination location. They've done some amazing things with that grocery store, bar none. But it is not cheap. But they do have good pizza at a good price. So
Depends on what you're looking for. Even there's some things that are cheaper at Central Market than Safeway.
Yeah,
because they're
Meth.
locally sourced versus
meth,
nation level
crack.
Yeah,
but yeah,
Fetamin.
But
Jesus, Kevin.
But hey, commissary $2.68 for a dozen eggs, though, Kevin. I was going to tell you.
Oh,
that.
outstanding! Thank you.
I'll give them to you for free.
So here's
Just gotta come to my house and pick them up out of the chicken coops.
Dude, one last thing. I'm going to tell you what I think is the jewel of Paulsbo. Like the one thing that is the best part of Paulsbo.
All right. Yeah. Go ahead.
And if you disagree, I think you need to be outvoted out of your next election.
Okay.
Outvoted?
Slice.
Chivanas are my favorite.
What?
The Chivanas are my favorite.
What's the Chivanas?
That's the braided kind of glazed donut, but it's got chocolate and peanut butter through the middle of it.
Okay. The Viking cups.
That's how I like the Chivanas.
The Viking cups, man. But I think Slice is the best of Paulsbo. Like it fits the motif, it's quality stuff, it's local, they haven't changed, they're consistent.
Neither has the Sons of Norway.
But there's a lot, and also I love Slice. I'm not gonna ever talk bad about Slice. I said I do love Chivanas. But there are so many other newer ones. Like I actually kicked myself. I didn't think of it till it was too late. I should have brought scones tonight. There is a baker who names the bakery's name is Oxalis.
Okay.
Think like a Mayan spelling, Oxalis, I believe. This lady and another baker started in the Paulsbo Farmers Market and stands in the farmers market. Could not afford to open a brick and mortar bakery.
Mm-hmm.
They were in the farmers market together long enough that they got together and decided to jointly open a brick and mortar market bakery in which every other day it switches between them. So like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, it's one baker. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, it's the other.
But they're selling everything both days, every day of the week.
No,
They
it's their own things.
Okay.
It's every other day, and then they're both at the market on Saturday.
So
And
one
it's-
get odd, one gets even.
Kind of.
Oh,
And
okay.
they met at the farmers market. That's where that's what I'm going to say is the jewel.
Where are they located at?
So it's on Viking Avenue, towards the movie theater. It's in that there's a little strip mall there. Used to have the equipment rental, was in that same little strip mall.
I know where that is.
Where's the movie theater in Paulsbo?
It's set a little bit off by
Yeah.
Fish Line. It's behind Fish Line a little bit.
Okay.
The Regent's up there, but it's the farmers market to me because there's so many businesses that have started in the farmers market and then progressed out into.
Where do you
something
guys
else.
have the farmers market at?
The farmers market meets in the Gateway Church parking lot every Saturday, 10
By-
to 2. It
By
has-
the way, can we talk about Gateway Church just for a sec?
I don't know a lot about them, but
No,
sure.
I'm not about the church specifically, but their connection to the community. Every time I hear about something going on down there, farmers market's in their parking lot. For a long time, they volunteered their parking lot for the parking ride.
Still do.
Still do. Okay. There's fundraisers in their parking lot that we hear about the demonization of organized religion and how bad it is. Blah, 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 blah,
You got
right?
some chick in the chat room who's like, Christians
Well,
always lie.
and I'll give you one further. The only reason Nordic Cottages worked
Yeah.
was Gateway leased the city 8 parking spaces because it butts up against that property
Mhm.
and there was not room on the property to put in parking.
Wow.
And so in order to have parking for those houses, Gateway leased it and basically made a deal, the city and the library. We sort of did a little swap, but it was only through the willingness of Gateway to lease us parking spaces in perpetuity for that project that project went forward.
But it's
Look at that,
amazing.
those small things, right?
It's amazing to me that we don't see more city religious partnerships. And I know that there's this whole separation, church and state, blah, 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 right? But there are certainly situations where cities can partner with religious organizations, churches, whatever, to serve really strong community projects like what we see in Paulsbo with that church, because that church, every time you hear about anything going on in Paulsbo, it involves their freaking parking lot.
Yep. And that's so the farmers market we're working to move it somewhere else, not because Gateway doesn't want them there or any problems with that. They've outgrown the parking lot. They are limited on the number of booth stalls they can have.
Where could you put it?
So do you know where the public works is there by the library, where the Quonset hut is?
No.
Okay. Coffee Oasis. Right next to that is the public works yard. Most of public works has moved out of that facility and it's out by, I can't think of the name of the road off the top of my head, but where Sonic was. If you go out that road where the Sonic was, public works is
out past the ball fields that are down there.
Next road over. It's there's
block up
it was
from
a Sonic,
Mont.
now there's an Arco, and there's a Kitsap Transit public transfer station there.
Okay.
Public works is out there now, and everything except essentially the mechanics work, because we haven't moved the lift and built all that, is moved out there. The city bought property out there years ago. Then the property next to it was the Nazarene Church that closed, put up for sale. They bought that. So the city owns about 12 acres out there. Solid waste transfers out there. And then the public works did all the work and converted the church into its offices and work, locker rooms, all that. And the goal was to move all the public works out to that location.
Okay.
And then take what is public works now and do a partnership with the farmers market and move them there. It gives them indoor facilities. It gives them offices. They can be there year round. It's big enough because they said some of the stalls are inside. Right now, the office of the Paulsville Farmers Market is basically the trunk of about 3 people's cars. And they have to put everything out every week on their own. So they have a shed somewhere. They store some stuff in the winter. But like I said, it's tapped out. It's reached.
I would
its
support
max.
that. Like I would go to Paulsbo just for the farmers market.
Yeah, I go to the farmers market every week, whether I buy something or not. I love the farmers market.
What the hell happened to the shortest lived Sonic in history?
I was about to ask that.
Like,
That's what everybody wants to know.
man.
That owner, he owned a bunch. He owned 6, 8, 12, like in 3 states.
I mean, I heard all kinds of rumors. I heard rumors about rats and all kinds of rumors.
What I heard was lawsuits but yeah, I don't have any real details on that one. But
Have you heard any noise about them reopening or being sold? Or
no,
anything?
because what I heard with the lawsuits is basically if he tried to reopen, all the money would immediately go to somebody else. It wasn't a real Sonic by the end, is what I was told. It was not operating under the franchise. But none of this is official. It's just whatever.
It's a shame too, because they were busy, they were consistent. You could never just get right in there. They always
weren't
had
even
lines.
open a year.
Yeah, I would love to see it open as something else, if nothing else, because it's a hole. That's the one thing. That's the thing you hate to see is holes in your community.
Yeah,
the Albertsons absolutely is we have been trying to do something with that Albertsons. Like
that's over kind of by the KFC and the Taco Bell.
Yeah, that's
right?
Paulsville Village.
Yeah.
And that you haven't been there in a while. KFC until they're gone. There's
really?
Oh yeah, they've been gone forever. There's a different Mexican
I
restaurant.
love the KFC Taco Bell combo.
Oh yeah, no,
right
that's
there.
been gone forever. You
Is
gotta come
Elmer
north.
still there?
See, if you would come north, like you said you're going to.
Is Elmer still there?
No,
yeah,
that's
they got
Denny's
the
now.
porn shop is there.
That's a Denny's now.
That's a Denny's
That's
now.
the nicest Denny's in the world.
You need to come north, Kevin. You spend too much time down here. I can get you up in Paulsville.
Why would I go to Paulsbo? Tara Simmons won't even talk to me anymore.
She doesn't live in Paulsville. She lives in Bremerton.
She lives in Tracyton.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right down the street from Caleb.
Yeah, that Albertson's been closed almost 10 years now. And it got to the point they basically have blocked Mayor Becky's email. Like they not only will they not take her calls and email anymore, they have blocked her. Like she has tried to reach out to the Albertsons Corporation so many times.
So who owns that space? Albertsons Corporation.
Albertsons Corporation. It's just a write-off for them at this point. Because it's worth more on paper than it is to sell it.
Who else would go there? Have you talked to? I'm not
there's
dropping
been a lot-
names. Are there potential tenants?
Well, they won't sell to another grocery store. So it's what else can use it that isn't a grocery store.
So would they sell it to a dollar store?
I don't know.
Do you guys have a dollar
they won't
store in
talk to
Paulsville?
us. I think there's a dollar store up there.
It's $1.50.
Same shopping center actually.
Okay. All right.
But no, they won't even talk to us now. Like we've been trying to figure out what we can do forever because it's just the fact that Paulsville Village has survived with that giant anchor store hole being a hole in the community for 10 years is unbelievable. It's actually a testament to how well the people that own that shopping center have done, but
or how much they've overcharged over the years.
well, and they've no, because they've converted like what's one of the places just down from it now is a physical therapy.
But this sounds like they
It's
have a lot of turnover.
Not so much anymore. It was for a little while, but like I said, Kids Have Physical Therapy took over one of the stores there now, and has a pretty big space.
Yep. Before that, isn't that the same space that the tribe that the Port Gamble Sklallam tribe was using for a while for their medical offices down there in the end for a while?
I'm not sure. I was thinking it was the Hallmark was in there, but it's hard to tell. Like, some of those places change over. There's a Mexican restaurant that was in there for a little while. I think just closed. Used to be a burger place, but we've got a lot of Mexican.
I had a business lease in that shopping center in the late 90s. It was a comic book and game store. No, it was while I had the mailboxes, etc. It was a comic book and game store.
Yeah, but they've done their best, but we've got to get that hole filled. I mean, that's a big problem.
That's what she said.
There's a few others. There's one down on Front Street that's been empty forever.
He's a professional, folks.
I'd love to see, somebody move into. You just hate to see those. You hate to see empty stores.
Do you know what I would love to do?
We could guess based on your last comment.
I would love to live in an apartment above one of the businesses on Front Street.
Yeah.
Like, I think that would be sweet. Like, I don't want to live in an apartment, but I would love to live in one of those.
Well, there's a new apartment building down at the end that just finished.
No, I don't want to be in an apartment building. I want to be one of the older style apartments that's like above a shop.
The action.
Well, no, there's business on the ground floor. It was the end, so it's Front Street curves up Postmark
down there by the pharmacy.
Yes, they kept the businesses on the ground floor, and then apartment used to be the Masons building.
What's like kitty corner for the pharmacy?
The Mason. Yeah. The largest apartment in there, which is about 1,500 square feet, I saw was posted for $7,500 a month. So based on what you said earlier,
are you serious?
Yeah, based on what you said earlier.
Well, see, Kevin,
right
it's a
in there,
trust,
though, so.
and they have to get fair market value for it.
$7,500 a month.
1,500 square feet. A very nice set of apartments that they put in.
But
better be furnished with a cheap hooker. It comes with it.
No, an expensive.
It's
one.
a lovely building. They've done an amazing job rebuilding this whole building.
Do you think they will? They'll rent it?
I believe they're all already rented.
Really?
But
if I'm paying $7,500 a month, I'm paying on a mortgage. Like, I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not going to pay somebody else.
That is twice my mortgage payment.
I was going to say that's a couple of mortgages.
That's 3 times my mortgage payment. That's 3 times my mortgage.
Well, that's because you're privileged.
Yeah, we've had two big apartments units, not huge, big, going on Front Street. Got a third one coming in here soon, and then there's the really big one going up across from Sonic. That's almost 500 apartments. That's coming. That they're working on now, Oslo Apartments, and that'll be a much lower.
So you don't know this about me, but I lived in Paulsbo for a year.
I do know.
I had a really nice rental over on Liberty Bay.
He had a girlfriend too.
Liberty Lane. Yeah, I lived there with Jess.
Yeah.
And gorgeous house, big windows facing it was best rental I've ever had in my life. I love Paulsbo. I think Paulsbo is a great town. If you guys would just quit, letting the cops murder people in your park. But I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. That was mean. That was a shot.
Wow.
I'm sorry, Rick. Don't even comment on that. No, I think Paulsbo is a great town. I really do. I think it's really maintained its small town feel. It's kind of community neighborhood feel. As Bremerton and Port Orchard and Silverdale have lost that, and Bainbridge never had it because they couldn't bust it in. Paulsbo's maintained it. It just feels quiet, small, and homey, even though it's not.
I don't think Port Orchard ever had that. Port Orchard always had an identity crisis.
Has it?
Yeah.
But even as Paulsbo adds all these housing developments, like Jess and I almost got a house in that development that's down kind of across the street from Cyan Palace, the big one that's you know what I'm talking about? Next to the Red Apple. If you go to the Red Apple, like you're headed down towards where Sonic used to be, that big housing development on the left.
Yes.
Jess and I almost got a house in there because it just seemed like a great place to settle down. Like, more than any other town in this county, Paulsbo just feels like if you're going to settle down with kids, that's where you go. It feels safe. It feels comfortable. It feels nice. It feels family. It feels a little touristy in a good way.
Yeah, the tourist system's definitely taken off. But I mean, part of that has been work. I mean,
Yeah.
it's really been work over many years. We've invested in our police. Like that's one thing where, you hear a lot of, especially around the state, talking about cutting departments or not being able to fill spots. And we added people and filled them immediately. So, because our department is a place people want to work.
Do you and Becky Erickson align politically? Overall?
I wouldn't say politically because that's too broad. It's issue by issue. And that's the thing about city council is it's issue by issue. It's
how much the reason I asked that question is how much credit does she get is that she's been the mayor for a while.
Yeah.
Paul's both seen a lot of success. I feel like they've dodged some of the arrows that some of the other cities
I think Becky
have
gets a tremendous amount of the credit because you had the same hand kind of steering the ship for 15 years.
Yeah.
And she weathered the recession, and people don't realize some of the lengths that Becky goes to, approaching new business, like going out and finding new business owners and saying, hey, we got this open storefront. Would you be interested? Meeting with developers and saying, okay, yeah, you want to do that, but we're going to make you do this, this, and this, the big new development that's going in just above that new roundabout. If you look at it, there's a huge retaining wall there, huge cement retaining wall. That is where their stormwater vault is. That could have just been an ugly rock wall, that with an open pit stormwater vault. Becky pushed them to where that is a nice concrete surface that's textured. There's even some imagery on it. The top of it is lidded. It's got a playground on it. There's things that she's insisted on over the years, pushed and been willing to work with people on and made things happen. And yeah, I give her a ton of credit.
Let me give you props. Because I know that there's been some political stuff that you guys haven't been on the same page about. But you can still sit there and say,
especially in the month of June.
Well, but you can sit there and say for the last 15 years, she's been running this, she's been, steering this ship, and she gets a lot of credit. And I think that is testament to her. I think it's also testament to you and your integrity, Rick. So thank you. Because I think some other people would be unlikely to give somebody on a little bit of a different political spectrum the credit that they might deserve because they're just not on that spectrum. You know what I mean? So thanks. That's credit to you.
Sure.
Last question. Then we got to get to weird food. You have enough for Rick for weird food?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, perfect. So last question. You get to pick anybody in Paulsbo city government. Anybody you want. You have to have a cage fight with somebody. Who is it?
Oh,
Cage fight.
Cage fight.
Cage fight. Okay.
Anybody in city government. Who is it?
Oh, I'm trying to think. There's some small people.
It's not Ace.
He's not in government.
Oh, well, yeah.
No, there's some small and nice people that I know would never fight back. So
may the odds be
I'm not
forever
saying
in your
anything.
favor.
No, I'm gonna pick our canine officer Luna because
You're picking a dog?
Yeah, she'd win because I just couldn't lay a hand on her, and that's the better. I've told the entire police department, hands down, unabashedly, my favorite officer is Officer Luna.
The dog.
So, the dog. And they know it. And they don't argue with me on it because
no, what are they supposed to say, Rick?
I know. Well, well, we have an Officer Luna and we have a canine Officer Luna too. So I have to be
Oh,
well, that could be kind of weird.
Yeah, but that's like I said, we invested. We in the department, we reinvested and have the first drug canine in Kitsap County again. Like no one had that. Sheriffs had police dogs, but not a narcotics dog. And so we reinvested because drugs are a problem, and the fentanyl was become more and more of a problem.
Okay, yeah.
And so our police chief came and said, "I want to get a dog," and really tackle this problem. And we supported it. Like I said, more officers. That we're reinvesting in the maritime aspect of the police department this year, and getting more to get our cops back out into the bay because we're having a problem with derelict vessels in the bay. Paulsbo, Liberty Bay has become the place to essentially be homeless on a boat in Kitsap County. And so
well, the bay is the inlet's really protected.
Yeah, and we don't want it to get dirty again.
Yeah,
we've done a ton of work over decades to clean that bay up.
It was so bad when I was at the Marine Center there because our water system, we took water directly from the center of Liberty Bay, and it was so dirty we had to double up on our filtration system. It was really, really bad. It was like a toilet that never flushed.
And at this point, Suquamish, and they have an affiliate that is reseeding it with oysters to then harvest.
Well, that's good. That'll help.
Yeah, it's helping the filter, but it's also it's clean enough for them to harvest the oysters.
Yeah,
to eat.
that's great.
And so we're not going to let it get back dirty.
How
so
bad is the percentage of when I worked on the Liberty Bay Water Quality Act back in the mid 90s? It was somewhere in the 70% range of septic systems that were failing.
Nothing that's in the city limits is failing.
Good.
Anything that's in the orange or red, I think it's green, yellow, orange, red.
Yeah,
is outside city limits, so we can't do a lot. But that is one of the things about annexation. If you come into the city, you don't have to immediately go on sewer. But if your system fails, you have to go on sewer. You can't replace it with existing. Separate system.
Yeah, the fecal coliform count was.
But yeah, everything.
Who picks up the cost of that
in the city is green?
Who picks up the cost of that? If I'm a property owner and
Democrats
my septic
pick up the
system,
cost of it. They
my
pass
septic
it along
system
to
has an
everybody
issue or
else.
whatever and has to go on to sewer, does the city assist with that? Does the homeowner? have to pay?
But I mean, if you truly can't afford it, there's things to help. But no, that is a homeowner.
Is it
a requirement?
That's a messed up stuff.
Well,
So we're gonna require you to do it, but you got to pay.
So
for it.
but if your septic system fails and you have to replace it, you're still looking at tens of thousands of dollars. So I mean, hookup fee to sewer or
it's not gonna be that.
replacement of septic, it's ouch. one
They'll
way or the
stretch it
other.
out though. The city will. I mean, you're not gonna have to drop a
we'll
check.
still work with it. And
Yeah.
we're about to raise some of our rates in that area because we're on one of the lowest in the whole county, and we need to. Utilities have
One
to
of the
pay for them.
lowest cities in the whole county. Rick,
One
there's
of the
only like
lowest.
5 of them.
Well, no, because there's utilities that are not part of the cities.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
and the
districts,
counties,
utility
and there's districts, but the utilities are separate funds and they have to balance. You know, you can't go in the hole in the utility funds, and so projecting forward, we got some that are going to go in
You're
the
not
hole if we don't
supposed to
raise
go in
rates.
the hole. Tell
But
the
even
federal
with the
government
raised
that.
rates that we're looking
Right.
at, we're still going to be lower than most of the rest of the
So
county.
the city of Paulsbo is fiscally conservative.
We attempt to be.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
Okay, what if I set up a cage match between you and Ace Haynes for charity? Would you do that?
Goodness.
Why is he fascinated?
Like we would
with
pat him
Ace?
down and make sure he didn't have any weapons, like a shotgun he might have gotten out of his car. Like we'll make sure that wouldn't have happened.
I did notice on my drive in that big giant Michelle Caldier sign on the side of the road. It says sponsored by Kevin.
It does not say that.
It will by the time I go home.
I have endorsed her for the race.
It will by the time I go home. I have a shirt.
You have?
Aren't you proud of me?
So-
Yeah, I endorsed her for the race.
So,
aren't you proud of
let's-
me?
Let's check
Yes.
this out. Let me read this breaking news to you because I'm not sure if you guys are aware of
Okay,
this.
you
or
want to
not.
hand out?
You guys have to close your eyes. So let's listen
Okay, go
to
ahead.
Paul. Go. And
Did
then
you say let's all listen to Paul?
yeah.
Yes.
No, okay.
This
So,
segment brought to you by Michelle Caldier.
so it's
For Senate.
It has been reported that apparently one of the issues that pushed Trump over the edge to make his decision is that Iran, during the negotiations, threatened the president with sleeper cell terrorist attacks on U.S. soils just days before the strike. And so I will read you what Grok, which actually has turned out to be really, really an excellent AI system, and it's current and up to date on everything, right? So a lot of the AIs that you use, they're like the last bit of information they got was like 2 or 3 years ago when they were being developed, right? So anything that's happened since then, they're just unaware of it. So Grok said evidence suggests Iran threatened to activate sleeper cells in the U.S. if attacked. These are based on reports from NBC News, the Times of Israel, the Hindustan Times, citing U.S. officials. The FBI has increased monitoring, indicating the threat was taken seriously. However, Iran has not confirmed or denied this. They made the threat, so I'm not sure how they would confirm or deny it. And its response has been missile strikes on Israel, not attacks on the U.S. So some analysts suggest that the threat is targeting specific individuals and not broader attacks. And like the last bit, it says the media may exaggerate for geopolitical reasons. No shit. Anyway, just thought that was a really interesting piece of information to pass along.
Well, I'll just say it. If you're interested in any of the land use stuff, the county commissioners are going to be voting tomorrow, at their meeting on. They had a bunch of rezone requests that were put in for their comp plan this time around. I can't remember if it's 14 or 17 residential, and then 5 or 6, I think, that were commercial and industrial requests. They had a workshop 2 weeks ago where they decided it was a 2-to-1 vote to take all the residential requests off and just proceed with the commercial industrial. They have to codify that vote because it was a workshop. So that's going to be tomorrow. I'm going to be back down here tomorrow to go to that meeting. There's
who are all 3 of the county commissioners now? It's Orrin Root,
Christine Rolfus, and Katie Waters.
So of the 3 of them, who would you cage fight with?
Oh my goodness.
Weirdly obsessed with this.
The only correct answer is Orrin Root, right? That's the only because he's the only guy.
I wouldn't hit a woman.
Yeah, so you have to be Orrin Root.
But Orrin would
kill you.
Would clean the
Orrin would kill you.
This is the first time in the history of political talk radio we went from discussing a potential imminent threat to the United States to, and if you would like to talk some more about land use issues, like whiplash.
Cage fight.
Yeah. Anyway.
Okay.
Rick, hold on. Rick, we love you. You're welcome here anytime.
Yes.
Like we keep talking about, well, when should I come down, or trying to line schedules? Fuck it, just show up. Like literally the casting couch. It's now the Rick Eckert casting couch.
Don't take that shit from him. His wife would not.
The
be
casting
happy.
couch, sponsored by Rick Eckert. That's
no, sponsored by Paul's Bow for All. I thought we had cleared that up.
The DNA on there is from Paul's Bow for All, but
especially Pam Keeley.
Hold it. It's my couch.
Yeah, well, you've bragged about what you've used it for over the years. I don't know.
You know what we should do?
Oh, I'm
Paul,
sorry. I didn't realize that
Paul,
was a secret.
We should do like an investigative show one night where we go through the distillery with a black light.
Oh, we already did that on Friday.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Heather and I.
Did you? Really?
Okay. Creepy. I don't know what to say,
But
Lori.
Rick, you're welcome
My
anytime.
image of you
You
is
really
just
are.
drastically changed.
I think
Image of who?
It's because these bottles.
Hey,
are
whatever
really
you say,
cool and
whatever you
black.
want.
This will piss off Pam Keeley, but you are an honorary outlaw. And if Pam Keeley would like to become an honorary outlaw, she just needs to agree to come on the show a few times. We'll have a conversation, Pam. Why don't
Just
you come on?
once.
Don't
Just
be
once,
scared.
Pam.
I appreciate the fact you were so concerned about my mental health back in the day when I made a joke about offing myself and you were so up in arms. It proves to me you have a good heart.
Would you? Okay, let Lori do her thing now.
Okay.
Okay, we got to
Guys,
close our eyes.
Close your eyes.
All right.
Rick, you're fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
She's hitting on him. He's
I
married.
said Rick is fine.
Jeez, Lori. His wife's pretty cool too. She plays with Legos.
Oh, I meant to tell you the song I was thinking about earlier. Remember I brought up I had a song stuck in my head? It goes like me and Tom's Aunt Nan, Tom's Aunt Nan.
I thought he was going to say me and my shadow.
We got a thing going on.
Oh,
Chicka bow bow.
Oh,
Huh? Where am I going? Okay. I can't open my eyes though. So how am I supposed to feed myself if I can't look at what I'm trying to feed myself?
I smell strawberries.
I do too. Are we allowed to eat now?
Put your
Oh.
hand down because I moved it so you can put your hand right in it, Tom.
Huh?
I
Oh,
moved it so you yeah. All right.
Thank you.
Well, there's nothing on my spoon, so I don't know.
Thank you.
Lori, I got to get some on my spoon. You want to help me? Since I can't open my eyes. And look
Kevin
at
wants
it.
to spoon with Lori.
No, well, after she just told Rick it was fine. I think Rick would be a great big spoon.
Well, I thought it was strawberry shortcake, but I'm not tasting any shortcake.
Is it strawberry shortcake?
Is that your final answer?
Yeah.
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 It's traditional strawberry shortcake.
On a scone?
Most of us
Or biscuit?
eat strawberry shortcake, but it's actually angel food cake.
Right. Do it the wrong way. This is the right way.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, by the way, Rick's going to be back next week because he promised.
Oh,
us
yeah, that's
scones. Yeah.
Thank you, Lori.
You're welcome.
You hear that, Rick? You're going to be back next week because you promised us scones. This is not weird food, though. Like, I mean, I love it. Don't get me wrong. But when you say weird
shut up.
food, I think we're going to be eating
Shut
like,
up.
like pig anus and eye of newt and like, you know. what I
Lori,
mean?
you're welcome to bring different stuff for Kevin. With all due
If
respect,
she ever-
I'd love to see the look on his face when he ate cow tongue.
No,
Okay.
if she ever brings
I'll bring you
in-
some horse meat, Kevin.
If she ever brings in stuff that I find is gross, I will never play this game again. By the way, can I give a couple shout outs? You guys mind?
Ling was delicious.
That was really good, Lori. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Lori.
Not sugar
Very
free, but
good.
whatever. My diet's been violated. I was just mouth raped. I want to give a shout out and Rick, I suggest you take your wife. They opened in Silverdale a new Korean hot pot where the old Famous Days barbecue was, kind of next to Men's Warehouse behind Target.
Oh, yeah.
It is seriously amazing. Seriously amazing. It's $37 a person, all you can eat. Doesn't include your beverages, but it's all the food. And it is amazing. So you should totally go. And they're not paid advertiser. My youngest daughter took me there for Father's Day.
Seems a little spendy, but it's
Well,
all
30
you can eat.
I don't know, 37 for where are you going to get? I mean, unless you go to a diner, but if you want to go to somewhere with a little bit better food, you're not going to get out for $37 a person, are you?
I love hot pot.
I'm just saying, this is $40 for a meal seems a little bit.
But it's hot pot and it's all you can eat.
I don't know.
Well,
I guess I'd have to figure if I could eat $40 worth of food.
My absolute favorite comedian in the world is coming back to Seattle in August.
Who's that?
Who?
Joe Mackey.
Oh,
You ever seen Joe Mackey? And we went and saw him there last year, same place as Laughs Comedy Club.
In
So
Tacoma?
my wife is deciding if she wants to go back because we just saw him last year. I will go back.
Is that Tacoma or is that Seattle?
It's Seattle. It's up by University of Washington-ish. And so I might be going back to see that. So if she doesn't want to go and the rest of you, if any, he is I first saw him on Last Comic Standing.
Do you know the date?
Okay.
It's towards the end of August. I'll shoot.
Is it on a weekend?
It's a Friday and Saturday. He's got 2 shows.
Okay, if you get it, the last weekend of August.
It's
is
like
the
the 21st, 22nd. So it's not. I don't think it's the
or the
last.
22nd, 23rd. You mean?
Yeah.
If you get tickets to a Saturday night show and your wife's not going to go, grab a ticket for me and I'll pay you back and I'll go with you for sure. I
Okay.
love stand up comedy.
Yeah, I remember him. He was so funny, and everybody. It was one of those things where you always pick the guy you want to get rid of. You have to go up again, and everybody picked him. So he did probably 3 times as many sets as any of the rest of the comics on the show. Made it to 4th place, but he had a joke. He got to the end where he just destroyed the entire room, judges, everybody, because he made it. I know Obama's your favorite president. He made a joke where he was sitting and he was talking about president, and he goes, the founding fathers, the founding fathers could see you today. And he said, the founding fathers could see us today. They'd be brought to the White House and meet the president. And they'd oh, you're the president? Oh, you must be one of Thomas Jefferson's kids. And just destroyed the room. The judges, the other comics.
If you don't get it, crack a
And
book.
it was just, and it was, he's clean. He barely curses.
That's funny.
He's
Yeah,
got
if you go, get 2 tickets and I'll get 2 tickets from you and I'll bring you a date.
I wouldn't be your date.
Well, I would assume you would. Your wife may still want to go. I'm just saying I will go with you.
It's okay. I'll tell you one. So we had this comic on years ago on the show, and he was Muslim, and he told the joke. Right? Tell me if I get the joke wrong, Kevin.
Okay.
Would it have been less? What did he say? He was talking about 9/11. He said, "Would it have been less tragic if the towers weren't twins?" And I'm out today working on the paintball field, and one of the kids that's out there working with us, right? One of the guys that was out there, an electrician we had out there, was asking me about what I thought about the Iran stuff, right? And so we were just BSing for a few minutes, right? And he started in 9/11 and all this other stuff, and I was like, wait, let me ask you, would it have been less tragic if the towers weren't twins? And all of a sudden, I hear this voice. That's not funny. Don't say that shit. I had people in my family that died that day. I turn around and look. You're like 19, kid. You weren't alive to be offended by that.
Yeah.
Right? I'm like, please. Like fucking Gen Z or whatever generation he is, man. I was offended by December 7th, but fuck it. It's a long time ago. Like, I just was like, now you're offended by shit you weren't alive for? Wow. I remember getting deployed and walking around for like 2 weeks with a gun on my hip, not knowing what was going to happen next, And this kid's offended at something that happened before he was born. Is it just me, or was that a little bit much?
Yeah, no.
I was trying to be nice to him too, and I'm just like, I had to shut my mouth, man. I couldn't. Anyway, that was my story.
I was trying to find some offensive Iranian jokes because I just figured we haven't done a most offensive 5 minutes in radio in forever. But
I've been up and going since 6 a.m., dude. It's time for me to
I've been
go.
up since 5:10 this morning.
I don't care. It's all good for you.
I'm just saying I've been up since 5:10 this morning.
And you work tomorrow, right? You're up early?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm not going into the office tomorrow.
Fuck off.
Wait, are you back to work from home?
No,
Oh.
but I have no, I'll be honest. I see a counselor. I do mental health counseling on Mondays,
which is great.
And since I can't go to it if I am in the office because I don't make it back to the side of the water in time. They allow me to work from home on those days so I can make those appointments because it was in place before the change. So there's some concessions that are in place for.
No, that's good. And good on you for having the courage to acknowledge that. It's not like you think you're a woman or anything. So it's probably, it's good.
It's
a good thing.
We have exceptions at work too. It's not the come back to work, no remote. No, it wasn't as blanket in order as people made it out to be.
Yeah.
It was come back, but then see, so we have people that if there's reasons,
reasonable accommodations.
There's a lot of, so now where I work is actually, I laugh because people, is your job okay? So I'm at the only place probably in the whole government where people ask to resign and we're told no. So
no, my agency was the same way. Yeah, that we were on the excluded list as well. That weren't going to take the early outs. There was a big nationwide meeting held with the director of the VA for VA employees on Friday. Yeah, it was on Friday. And he basically made it clear that there was no RIF coming for VA, no reduction in force coming for VA employees.
Well, people were screaming about that
not
because
even
of Doge cuts.
So when they did the DERP, the second round of DERP, we had people who had
DERP. I love that, by the way.
Deferred resignation program.
DERP.
But we all call it DERP. We had people who applied and they just basically said no.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to resign. No, you're not.
Well,
and they still are coming to work.
I would like to make it very clear that seeing a counselor does not entail that you have mental health issues. No. Like all kinds of people, like when I owned the strip club, no joke, man, those girls drove me to see a counselor because I did not understand the chaos, the willing chaos that they created in their own lives. And the counselor helped me understand it, what it was, where it came from, why they did it. So I'm not referring to anybody here. Y'all are laughing like I'm talking about somebody. I'm not.
I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not.
All right. Before we wrap,
That's the nature of women.
Before we wrap, I just have a couple
I wasn't going to
jokes.
say that.
I just have a couple jokes I want to share.
I felt like a counselor in my 20 years in the Navy more than many times.
I just have a couple jokes I want to share in honor of the pending terror attacks coming by the Iranian regime as a result of what Trump did with his big bunker buster bombs. So why do terrorists shop at Walmart? Because they prefer a Target. Okay. Where do suicide
doesn't make
bombers
any sense?
Where do
Why did they
suicide bombers
shop
go? Where do suicide bombers go after they die?
Where?
Everywhere. I love this one. How do frogs die? They commit suicide.
I just introduced Logan to Jeff Dunham.
Oh, really?
And
there you go.
I had to explain to him that repeating the Ahmed terrorist jokes is not appropriate, and otherwise I could see him
wrong thing,
people not
thing.
understanding and out of context,
Mm-hmm.
and so I had to explain to him that was not a
Yeah.
don't repeat that, but and trying to explain how ventriloquism works was also interesting.
I had a Isaac doesn't get ventriloquism.
Yeah.
He doesn't find humor in it.
It took me back to way back when my oldest son was little and we were at a PTA thing and the person said kids' brains work different. Whole big long speech, whole hour-long presentation. And at the end of it, she goes, and if you don't believe anything else I said, convince your 5-year-old that a duck is a bird. And I'm like, right there. And I always remembered that because it's like, because of a 5-year-old, well, it's a bird. No, it's not. It's a duck.
Yeah.
But it's a bird. No, it's a duck. And
That's a good one, Rick.
I'm going to read this and then we're done. So this is a public service announcement. I didn't write it, but I found it online. It says here that Muslim suicide bombers in Britain are sent to begin a 3-week strike on Wednesday in a dispute over the number of virgins they're entitled to in the afterlife. Emergency talks with Al Qaeda have so far failed to produce an agreement. The unrest began last Tuesday when Al Qaeda announced the number of virgins a suicide bomber would receive after their death would be cut 25% in February from 72 to 54. A spokesman said increases in recent years of the number of suicide bombings has resulted in a shortage of virgins in the afterlife. The Suicide Bombers Union, the British Organization of Occupational Martyrs, otherwise known as BOOM, responded with a statement saying the move was unacceptable to its members and called for a strike vote. General Secretary Abdullah Aloud Bang told the press, quote, "Our members are literally working themselves to death in the cause of jihad. We don't ask for much in return, but to be treated like this is to be a kick in the teeth." Speaking from his shed in Tipton in the West Midlands, Al Qaeda chief executive, I shit my pants, explained, "I sympathize with our workers' concerns, but Al Qaeda is simply not in a position to meet their demands. They are simply not accepting the realities of modern day jihad in a competitive marketplace. It's a straight choice between reducing expenditures or laying people off. I don't like cutting benefits, but I hate to tell all 3,000 of my staff that they won't be able to blow themselves up." So that is your public service announcement.
Oh, Lord.
I really like the quotes from General Secretary Abdullah Aloud Bang and the Chief Executive Officer, I sheet my pants. All right. Dennis, do you have any parting shots? Come on, Tom. That was good, right? Did you enjoy that? Paul's not laughing because he doesn't have a sense of humor.
I was trying
anymore.
not to cry, man.
God, that was good. That was really good. Your speaker's on the bottom.
When you're drinking water that isn't yellow, when you're with a family that isn't wrapped in white, unless you're an immigrant, you didn't choose to live in this country. So don't tell me you're not privileged. Open a chime checking account.
What? Was that Tara Simmons?
Huh?
Was that Tara Simmons?
No. It was just some liberal white chick going off. It's typical. Typical. It's just totally common now.
Dennis, you had no other parting shots, buddy? Nothing to say? No cooperate for kids? No I masturbate in the closet? Nothing like that?
Dennis, he's just
All
a
right.
butthole, dude. It's okay.
Speaking of masturbating in the closet, Lori, do you have any comments?
Wow.
Well, it's not like you've ever been caught there.
Oh my gosh.
Rick is like, why do I come on this show? Lori, parting shots.
Parting shots for Dennis, cooperate for kids. Kitsap Destruction Derby Association is going on this summer at the fairgrounds.
Next
Check
race
out.
is the 12th.
Next race is July 12th per Tom. Thank you. And what else do we have going on? Oh, Whaling Days is coming up, right?
Yeah. Have you
Yeah.
heard about, I don't want to keep us here later, but have you heard about the plan for Whaling Days this year?
No, I have not.
It is the
Sorry,
50th,
Dennis.
the 50th anniversary of Star Wars.
Oh, that's
And so here's what they're going to do. On Friday night, they'll do the fireworks show. It'll be a Star Wars themed fireworks show. How come you guys don't do fireworks shows in Paulsboro? And then on
because they cleaned up their harbor.
that's right.
why.
On Saturday,
We're about to have an advisory vote to ban fireworks completely in Folesville.
are you going to vote for it or against it?
I want to ban fireworks. We can have a whole
Why?
conversation about that next time.
We will on Sunday when you bring scones.
I can't come back this Sunday. Remember, I told you it was this one or.
And by the way, why would you ban fireworks when the tribe is literally right outside of your jurisdiction and they saw all the fireworks? That's like trying to ban ice cream sales and have a Baskin Robbins
The
in
tribe
town.
sells the fireworks. The city doesn't.
Right, but they're going to buy them and bring them into the city.
That's what he's saying he doesn't want to have happen.
But they're going to do it anyway. No fireworks bans have ever worked. All right. Anyway, so that's on Friday, and then on Saturday they're going to have a Beastie Boys tribute band on the main stage, and then on the family stage they're going to put up a 12-foot projection screen, and they're going to play the original Episode 4 Star Wars.
Oh.
And then after that, they're going to have a Star Wars themed drone show. Oh, it's the same one from America Got Talent?
The
Nice.
drone show?
The drone show, yeah.
Oh, very
And here's the really good news. You want to know the best news of all?
What?
Guess who for the 8th consecutive year will be your MC at Whaling Days this year?
Kevin Chambers.
This guy right here. Yeah, got to hang out with Mix last year.
I know.
Yeah, get to
So
drink in the
jealous.
beer garden for free. Not
So
for free,
jealous.
but people give me their tickets. All right. Rick, speaking of Star Wars fandom, do you have any parting shots? You are a Star Wars fan, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I can't believe you
I
want to
saw
vote.
that movie in the theater originally.
Is there
6.
anybody on the like, do you think it'll pass to ban fireworks in the city of Paulsville?
It's only going to be an advisory vote, so it's not a. So we'll see.
Advisory to who?
It's so
the mayor?
Basically, we're asking the residents of Paulsville, do they want us to ban them or not?
And then it goes on a ballot.
And then that's on the ballot, and then it'll be a vote of the council if we choose to vote to ban them from there. So like I said,
Okay, so the city would say the city population votes.
Yeah.
And if they said yes, we believe they should be banned, then you guys ratify it and make it so.
Yes.
But if they say no, do you still vote?
We will still have a conversation.
You wouldn't vote it. You wouldn't go against
My
the vote of
intent
the
is
city,
to
would you?
go with what the vote says.
Okay.
I personally want to see them banned, and I've been railing at the council for years and years to do it. I'm the one that pushed it to be a advisory vote, because that way it's not a who's loudest on social media.
Mm-hmm.
It's what's the city residents really want.
Okay.
And so that's the direction we took it. And having on the November ballot didn't cost the residents of the city any extra money,
Mm-hmm.
because you have to pay for those. But because we already have 4 things on the ballot, 3 council and the mayor, this was no extra cost. So,
okay. All right. Do your parting shots, anti-firework boy.
He said, why do I come down? I was going to say there's no loss because there's only 2 people in Paulsville that listen to the show, and you banned one, and I'm here. So
Who do we ban?
Holly.
Does she live in Paulsville?
I believe she does, but mostly I just wanted to pick at you for
I'm
saying that.
pretty sure she lives in Belfair, but yeah. I ran into her at the grocery store out there.
I'm pretty sure she's homeless. To be completely honest,
I have no idea, really. I just wanted to push back.
She might very well
give me
be a
hard
guy
time.
named Bruce that lives in his parents'
No,
basement.
she's real.
She could be. What was his name? Who was the council member that lived in his mom's basement and assaulted Jammer?
Brown.
Josh Brown. She could be Josh Brown, as far as I know. Go ahead, Rick. I'm sorry.
Anyway, no, I'm happy to be down here at any time.
Glad you're here, and I really hope the bromance with you and Ace continues to go well.
No, nobody else will talk politics with me like you guys will. So
yeah, I hope you and Ace are happy together. Tom, parting shots.
now I don't take it back.
Schmuck. You can call him schmuck. It's Jewish for prick.
Jim Loescher is still in the chat room. Aren't you past your bedtime, old man? Go ahead, Tom.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Just for the end of the night tonight, I'll just wish my my younger sister a happy birthday on Tuesday.
Happy birthday, younger sister.
Happy birthday.
Yeah.
And Nancy, how you doing, baby?
Yeah. She went to bed now, you weirdo.
She'll go back and listen to this. She loves it.
Yeah, sure she will.
Paul, parting shots.
Bomb, 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 Iran. Bomb, bomb, bomb. No. I had to. I don't know if Dennis played it or not.
He did.
Yeah, good. Good. That was perfect. Great song. Great find, Dennis. Listen, if you don't believe that we shouldn't bomb Iran back to the Stone Age, and by the way, there should be something empirically, wrong word. There should be something incredibly wrong with bombing a third world country back to the last century that they never left. But
if you bomb them back to the Stone Age, wouldn't it be an advancement?
It might be. I don't know.
Damn.
But with all due seriousness, Iran is a danger, and we'll see if anything happens. I lost the bet last week because I said nothing was going to happen. Right?
Yeah, and you ridiculed
I thought
me.
we were going to have boots in the dirt. So
You ridiculed
we're
me and,
halfway there.
Said that I was wrong and I'm never right. And you brought
never.
up the Cougs.
You didn't say that we were going to freaking bomb their the nuclear sites.
I don't remember what I said. Go to the tape. Go ahead, Paul.
Kevin's like, I don't know what I said, but I was right.
I said I'd take you up on your AOC bet, but only at Trading Places levels, but I'm guessing you never saw that movie. So
$1.
Nope,
Sorry.
he hasn't.
No, which movie?
Trading Places.
No.
$1.
Are you done, Paul?
Yeah, I'm done. I'm ready to go home and go to bed.
My parting shot is I think I shared last week about my experience with the motorcycle accident and all that. Did I share about that last week? So
Yes.
today when I was driving on 16 at the spot of the accident, there's a cross that they've now erected on the side of the road. Our good friend Dave Raymond was actually at their memorial service last night. The family reached out to him through me with some really nice thoughts, which I thought was really sweet, for what me and the other people on scene had attempted to do. And I really appreciated that. I just want to remind people to really just be aware of the bikers on the road. It is very easy to lose a biker in your blind spot. It's very easy to not be paying attention and lane change or whatever. There's no parachute, there's no airbags, there's no seatbelt on those bikes. So just as we get into warmer weather, more bikes out there, just be cautious, just be safe, keep your eyes open. And to the motorcycle riders out there, don't be idiots.
Yeah, ride like you're invisible.
Yeah, don't ride like you own the road, because if people don't see you, you're the one that's going to pay the brunt of it. So
ride like you're invisible.
Ride like you're
Yeah, ride like
that makes sense.
ride
Sorry.
like no one can see you.
Not like you should be invisible, but ride like
ride
nobody
like you
knows
are
Yeah.
invisible.
So yeah. But that's it. I just actually had a real party shot tonight. On behalf of the show, we appreciate you guys. We'll be back again next week with one and the only Alicia Beeler in studio.
Yes,
in studio. Paul set this up, not me. The future Mrs. XK Dog will be in studio live, so she can talk about my.
Dude, you're gonna get into a fight with the woman you're currently hitting on.
You're gonna.
She's Alicia. How can you tell Alicia Beeler no? Like I would.
Well,
I would.
Where it goes like this. Hi, Alicia. No.
You're gonna
See?
scare Alicia
It's
away.
easy.
You guys should see the conversation we had in the chat about Alicia Beeler coming on the show and what I admitted, but I'm not going to do it on the show.
Dude. Yeah, that's
we will.
don't even.
We
no.
will. We'll see you guys at 7 p.m. next week. Alicia Beeler in studio. Rick Eckert back in studio with scones. Tara Simmons will be on the big show. Jimmy Fallon's going to join us. Also, Bob Newhart and Johnny Carson. Great show, everybody. We appreciate you. We'll see you
And
next week
Kevin's gonna have corn
on the Outlaw. Plenty of corn. Radio Network. Good night. Thank you, Dennis, for being you. We love you. You sexy sumbitch. Good night, everybody. Outlaw Radio.